At this moment, the noodle stall owner continued, "But our Lishui city is doing well now. This place is the land of young heroes." Land of young heroes? How long has it been since young Dr. Duan left? The Xuanxiong gang was wiped out overnight, and later even the county magistrate was killed. You know about this, right? I know. At first, it was rumored to be the work of some evil demon, but later we found out that wasn't any evil demon. It was the renowned young hero Duan. Once the Xuanxiong gang was eliminated, there was no one to collect silver and very few people got beaten up. Our days have been much better. No matter how others say young hero Duan is the old demon, we recognize him as a hero. These good days we have are all brought by him. Speaking of this, the noodle stall owner couldn't help but puff out his proud chest. Duan Yun felt quite proud for a moment, but still a bit surprised. Has it been so long? And there are still no gangs in the city? There are. Half a year later, the Xuanxiong gang reappeared. Reappeared? Duan Yun exclaimed in surprise. Someone in the city found the manual for practicing the Xuanxiong palm at the Xuanxiong gang's base. So someone else mastered it again. Doesn't that cause chaos again? Duan Yun asked. How could it cause chaos? We're the land of young heroes here. Last time even the county magistrate was killed. Who dares to mess around now? Your new Xuanxiong gang doesn't collect protection fees? Doesn't beat people up? They don't collect, don't beat people, and even help repair houses and pave roads, though they charge a little labor fee. From this inquiry, Duan Yun learned that those who newly mastered the Xuanxiong palm, although organized into the Xuanxiong gang again, did not randomly beat or collect protection fees, but engaged in construction work, earning silver. They don't lose their temper anymore? Duan Yun asked curiously. When he decided to eliminate the Xuanxiong gang, aside from personal vendettas, it was also because those bear kids became extraordinarily violent after practicing the hand technique, unable to control their tempers, and would easily kill people. Their tempers are great, but this is the land of young heroes. They dare not act recklessly. When they lose control of their tempers, they put each other in an octagonal cage for sparring, which lets them vent their tempers and improve their martial arts. Duan Yun did not anticipate that since he left, his hometown had turned into the land of young heroes. At this time, a fellow townsman at the next table interjected. Old Li, isn't it strange lately that the Xuanxiong gang can't be found these last 2 days? Can't be found? The noodle stall owner, Old Li, asked in confusion. Indeed, they haven't finished digging the communal toilet in the west of the city, and our shopkeeper hasn't paid them yet, but they can't be found. Could they have gone outside to train? I remember they would go hammer trees wildly when practicing martial arts, and quite a few old trees in the suburbs were ruined by them. Who knows? Maybe they've been wiped out. Wiped out? How is that possible? Old Li said. There's a lot of fighting and killing in the martial world. It's been peaceful on account of the land of young heroes. But now that the young heroes are no longer here, who knows if chaos might start again. With that, concern appeared on the faces of the people at the noodle stall. Listening to this conversation, Duan Yun raised his eyebrows slightly. The new Xuanxiong gang can't be found? Wiped out? Audacious! Someone dares to wipe out a gang in the land of young heroes? Damn it, if it's true, I must wipe out their whole family. After finishing his noodles, Duan Yun still had this matter in his mind. So he headed to the Xuanxiong gang's base. The Xuanxiong gang's base was quite different from before. At least the face of it was reduced by more than half. A part of what used to be the Xuanxiong gang's territory had obviously been renovated into a lukewarm street. Just as the fellow townsman at the noodle shop said, the Xuanxiong gang seemed deserted. Before the annihilation, the Xuanxiong gang had gatekeepers and several guards. Even if the new Xuanxiong gang switched to construction, there should still be at least one gatekeeper. After all, isn't it still a gang? Duan Yun, with little Een, easily entered the premises. The place seemed quite clean, clearly regularly maintained. Even though the Xuanxiong gang's members were missing, it should only have been recent that they disappeared. Duan Yun circled around inside twice and even ran into a fellow townsman looking for the Xuanxiong gang to clean the communal toilet, but found nothing. The local looked worried, saying, "We had an agreement, but now no one can be found. The feces in that communal toilet are hard and stinky. Even a bamboo stick broke trying to prod it. Only their bare paw can do it. If it continues to stink, can I still run my bun shop?" Later, the fellow townsman also added, "Have they gone to cut trees again? This time, too many people have gone." Since the new Xuanxiong gang was in the construction business and training required wood while construction also needed timber, it made sense for them to go out for wood. But this time they went too thoroughly. No one was here, which seemed odd upon reflection. Afterwards, the local with the bun shop also left, leaving only Duan Yun and Little Een to roam the place. At this point, Little Een sniffed the air and walked straight to a brick house. That place was the Xuanxiong gang's kitchen. The wall next to the stove had long been blackened by smoke. Little Een searched in the kitchen, clearly having picked up on something. Duan Yun asked, "What did you smell?" Little Een frowned and said, "Nothing clear yet, but without you telling me, I also want to see my limits." Yes, Little Een had learned to answer quickly. At this moment, Little Een suddenly thrust half her body into the hearth, leaving only her moon-shaped hips outside. Duan Yun observed closely. He had to admit that, in terms of investigating and finding things, he was not as good as the daughter of the Jade Guanyin. Then Little Een, with a flick of her hips, threw something to the ground. Duan Yun looked at it, his expression changed slightly. It was a hand. A large, thick hand like a bear paw. It was clearly cultivated by someone from the Xuanxiong gang practicing the Xuanxiong palm. Now this hand was in the hearth. But where was the person? This hand was covered with some earth, mixed with the black ash from the hearth. Little Een, looking at the hand, said solemnly, "This hand has the scent of salt and Sichuan peppercorns." Hearing this, Duan Yun narrowed his eyes slightly. What did this imply? He carefully inspected the bare paw, looking at the cracked earth on it, and the casually burned lotus leaves. He said, "This resembles the method of making beggar's chicken." Previously, when Duan Yun roamed the martial world, camping in the wild, he was not good at cooking wild game, and later he learned some knowledge in this area. In the wild, the most easily hunted is wild chicken, so he first learned to make beggar's chicken. Beggar's chicken involves wrapping in lotus leaves, then covering with yellow clay, and cooking in a bonfire. This hand was seasoned, and had mud and a lotus leaf. It was evident someone was trying to roast it this way. Was someone looking to eat this hand? Could this be the reason for the Xuanxiong gang's sudden disappearance? Good heavens. Seems like I've really encountered an evil demon committing crimes in the land of young heroes. Duan Yun looked at Little Een and said, "Keep searching." Indeed, any evil demon daring to cause trouble in his hometown must have their whole family wiped out. Little Een took a careful sniff of the bare paw and continued her search. The sky gradually darkened, and the entire Xuanxiong gang base was eerily quiet. Thinking about someone specifically taking people's hands to eat them, this scenario gradually unfolded into a bit of horror. What kind of entity specifically eats a hand practiced to mastery? Duan Yun, holding the beggar's bare paw, felt a bit mixed in emotion. Little Een, growing somewhat tired from searching, felt revived as Duan Yun's finger lightly touched her back, causing her legs to clamp tightly, regaining her focus. She looked at Duan Yun, complaining, "Could you not be so sudden?" Though this lewd finger strength gave her some pleasure, too suddenly would make her a bit overwhelmed. And in this mix of comfort and pain, Little Yin's sense of smell indeed became sharper. She headed straight to the backyard. In the backyard stood a rockery covered with moss. Little Een knelt near the rockery, knocked on the ground, and said, "Got it." Below the rockery was hollow, and there was a faint scent reminiscent of the Xuanxiong palm wafting from below. The area beneath the rockery was hollow, something that caught Duan Yun slightly off guard. Judging by the surroundings, this house up front should be the spot where he previously killed the Xuanxiong gang leader. Cunning people have multiple retreats. This should be the leader's secret chamber underneath. That day he tested the waters, and his jade sword finger was too swift and sharp, leaving the opponent without a chance to escape here. This mechanism wasn't all that ingenious. It merely disguised a wooden board with some dirt, making it hard to spot when nestled around the rockery. But once you pay attention to it, it's not hard to find. Duan Yun gently lifted the plank, revealing the pitch-black interior beneath. Duan Yun and Little Een followed the stone steps downward. The underground space was rather orderly, especially with a finely carved wooden door at the end of the steps, which seemed to have cost quite a bit. The Xuanxiong gang collected so much protection money then. It wasn't hard for the leader to have the secret chamber upgraded. With a creak, Duan Yun pushed open the wooden door. Several dim lights flickered, the space inside larger than expected, and the areas shadowed under the lamps seemed as if painted in ink, where Duan Yun could already smell a complex aroma. The scent of blood, among others like sweat. He raised a nearby oil lamp and proceeded forward. Soon after, he saw pairs of frightened eyes. These should be the members of the Xuanxiong gang. They were shackled with iron chains, trapped there like livestock. And none of them had a right hand. The Xuanxiong gang trained with human bear paws, usually on their right hands. In other words, their bear paws had been removed. As for why they were removed, one could guess from the human bear paws found just now in the stove. Is someone indeed eating human bear paws here? These people, upon seeing Duan Yun and Little Een, not only failed to show joy but were terrified to death, trembling all over, wetting themselves. Little Een, seeing this, couldn't help but say, "Something's wrong with them." "What's wrong?" Duan Yun asked. "As pretty as I am, even if they're scared, they shouldn't be this scared." Duan Yun looked at her resemblance to Zhu Xian's appearance and build, thinking this claim was somewhat reasonable. He himself was so handsome, exuding the warm aura of a compassionate heart. Yet they acted as if they'd seen an old demon. There's also the matter of sound. Why don't they make any sound? Little Een pondered. They were terrified to the point of wetting themselves. Yet they made no sound from start to finish, not even the abia of a mute. Duan Yun immediately grasped one of the severed hand men's jaws and checked, finding the tongue and throat were fine. They just weren't making a sound. He had more or less guessed the situation. It's not that they couldn't make a sound, but that they dared not. They must have been through intense fear and intimidation, making them afraid to make a sound. Seeing this, Duan Yun couldn't help but soften his expression, gently saying, "Don't worry, I'm a good person." As soon as he said this, the severed hand members of the Xuanxiong gang were even more terrified. Duan Yun looked around this secret chamber, unsure how many had ended up like this, disregarding even the young hero's tenderness and only knowing fear, with anger bubbling in his heart. He wanted to know which evil demon dared to cause chaos in his homeland. It's only fair to say, after wiping out the Xuanxiong gang and the county magistrate last time, it was peaceful for only 2.5 years, and now the land of young hero's reputation wasn't loud enough to deter these evil demons. This time he must thoroughly purge and spread the name to scare off these demons. "Where is the person who took your hands?" Duan Yun asked a relatively composed-looking man, but at this the man fainted from fright. Turns out the guy wasn't calm. He was numb from fear, and at this provocation, he utterly lost consciousness. Duan Yun then turned to look at another nearby. This one was also terrified. Duan Yun patiently explained, "Don't worry, I truly am a good person." Yet the other still appeared disbelieving, curling up inward continuously. Duan Yun lost his patience, stretched out his hand, and pressed it on the guy's head. In the next moment, the man's true chi was drawn into Duan Yun's palm in thin threads. It could be sensed that this person's true chi was weak, just slightly more than an ordinary person, as thin as a sewing needle. If not for Duan Yun's sharp awareness of true chi, he might not have noticed. This might be due to the person's shallow foundation, or perhaps the power of the Xuanxiong palm focuses on the hand, and with the bear paw gone, most of the skill dissipated, immediately followed by fragments of memories flooding the mind. Duan Yun saw a disheveled person constantly licking these people's bare paws, like a pervert, and in this memory, the person's face was colorful, as if wearing a mask, and in the dim environment, like a true evil spirit. even just fragments of memory. Duan Yun could feel the fear of these people without hands. At this moment, Duan Yun released his hand and asked, "Do you know where that multicolored face person went?" The handless man had just shivered uncontrollably, staring blankly at Duan Yun, just about to open his mouth but instinctively closed it again. But after a moment, he still spoke. "To Zhu family manor. He mentioned holding a grand feast there." "So you're not mute," Little Lean quipped. The handless man appeared in great agony and conflict. In truth, he was still instinctively fearful, afraid to speak, knowing full well what consequences rash sounds would bring. And this secret chamber is so hidden, that person is so terrifying, making a sound is useless. So these people are even more silent than mutes. And just now, after Duan Yun pressed his head and took a breath, he found this person wasn't easy to deal with either. Does he dare not answer questions from such a person? If he doesn't answer, he might have to suffer again. The person who cut off his bare paw is terrifying, but that person is not here at the moment. Whereas the one who can raise a hand to absorb his true chi, making him shiver, is right in front, can take his life any time, weighing the pros and cons. He could only care about the present, so he spoke. Duan Yun raised his hand, broke all the chains of these people and said, "Hurry up and leave." The group knelt on the ground immediately, some even crazily wanting to reconnect the chains, completely terrified, not daring to leave, because they had seen the consequences of some associates leaving. This might as well be another test sent by that evil demon sect. They are truly scared. Duan Yun sighed at the sight. "It seems I have to bring that thing's head over for you to believe I'm really a good person." Saying this, he snapped his fingers, mounted Little Lean and said, "Set off." Zhu family manor. Watching Duan Yun ride off on the back of a young maiden, the fear in the secret chamber grew more intense. Why does it feel like still in a wolf's lair? Yet another man-eating tiger has arrived. A man riding a woman, treating such a beautiful maiden as a mount, doesn't look like a good person. Little Yin's speed was very fast. Duan Yun hadn't ridden her for a day, from initial ease to later missing the weight on him. So at this moment, Duan Yun held her twin ponytails, and she felt full of power all over her body, moving very fast. Duan Yun is quite familiar with Lishui town. Zhu family manor is not within the town, but in the suburbs. Wealthy families love to build manors in the suburbs, with shops and businesses collecting gold in the town, allowing them to indulge in pleasure in the suburbs. Zhu family manor is such a place. In a hurry to kill the evil demons, Duan Yun focused only on holding the twin ponytails to speed up, paying no attention to people and scenery on the road. So he brushed past an ostrich without noticing, nor did Little Lean. A tall guy sitting on the ostrich, carrying a basket, looked at Duan Yun riding away on Little Lean and suddenly felt the ostrich under him unsatisfying. This person is the Tea King of Qingcha Market. In terms of power, he's arguably the top in this area. Qingcha Market isn't far from here. Otherwise, Duan Yun wouldn't have chosen to train hard there for 100 days and then rushed back overnight to obliterate the Xuanxiong gang. Since the Xuanxiong gang was wiped out, the Tea King's business spread to Lishui City. Due to the Land of Young Heroes title in the city, and its quite eerie origin, the Tea King didn't delve much here, just did his high-priced tea business. But no matter what, the Tea King Han is also a notable figure here. Shouldn't he have the flair when he goes out? Over the past 2 months, he finally spent high money to buy an ostrich as a mount. It's hard to find an ostrich in Yun State, and it's tall and bold, but it gives him much face. He always treated the ostrich as a treasure, wanting to eat and sleep with it. But at this moment, when watching Duan Yun riding Little Lean and disappearing into a trail of smoke, he suddenly felt this ostrich wasn't satisfying. My goodness, riding a beauty galloping swiftly, what kind of background is this? This flare feels bigger than my Tea King Han. Indeed, beauties aren't hard to find in the martial world, but one who can run so fast and is willing to be ridden, that's difficult. At this time, Tea King Han couldn't help but wave his hand and said to his subordinates, "Who was that person just now? Have you seen him before?" The subordinates shook their heads. "Haven't seen him? Then investigate. I want to see who is so ostentatious." The Tea King reflected. He was not just curious. A sense of intrigue bubbled in his mind. He fundamentally feels this area shouldn't have a presence more formidable than him, the Tea King. With little Ian sprinting along, Zhu family manor was already in sight. It was dusk. A manor on a gentle hillside seemed to be cloaked in a veil of gold. Here isn't only the Zhu family as a major household. There are other manors too, but because the terrain is quite spacious, the doorways have some distance between them, not disturbing each other. The road paved with white stones extends to the gate of Zhu family manor. For a moment, under the reflection of the sunset, the white stones are like white jade, and the flora like gold, making the whole Zhu family manor appear magnificent. Duan Yun and little Ian arrived at the entrance, both showing slightly disappointed expressions. From afar, the manor looked big and splendid, but upon close inspection, you found the place rather run down. The walls are mottled, with some holes that haven't been repaired. The gate is relatively tall and clean, but the pillars beside already have wormholes. It could be seen that Zhu family manor isn't as wealthy as imagined, even somewhat declining. Previously thought this place was very wealthy. It was all the sunset casting a filter on it. Duan Yun knocked on the door. After a while, a plain-looking old man came to answer. Seeing Duan Yun and little Ian, the old man paused, puzzled. Who are you looking for? I am a gynecologist, here to treat Mrs. Zhu, Duan Yun said. He knew the Zhu family. When he left, the other had married 6 wives, and 2 wives would have affairs with the coachman. Because the coachman would occasionally park the carriage in wild grass, Duan Yun a few times passed by and saw the carriage shaking. After shaking, you'd hear the coachman and Mrs. Zhu's voices. Of course, that was quite some time ago. This old man realized and said, "The 12th wife needs treatment. Come with me." Duan Yun was shocked upon hearing it. 12th wife? Good gracious, he left for 2.5 years. The Zhu family had married 6 more times, doubled the number of wives. Walking through the manor, it was apparent the manor had a good foundation, but poorly maintained, showing signs of decay. The manor had about 3 entries, and at this time, Duan Yun and little Ian had already followed the old man to the back courtyard area. Then a somewhat haggard middle-aged man walked out, saying, "Old Zhao, what kind of people? What are you doing at my Zhu family?" The old man paused, saying, "Master, didn't you find a doctor for the 12th wife? The 12th wife has been tormented lately. The old servant's heart is bitter." "I found a doctor. When did I, the master, find a doctor?" said the middle-aged man. Immediately, he looked at Duan Yun and said in a low voice, "No matter who found the doctor, quickly leave." Duan Yun asked upon seeing this, "Is there someone inside?" Because at this point, without little Yin's reminder, Duan Yun had already smelled the scent. The scent of meat. The scent of roasted meat, stewed meat, grilled meat. Zhu family's master said gravely, "Some things are not to be inquired about. Quickly leave or you'll not know how you died." But Duan Yun and little Ian didn't pay him any heed, directly walking inside. Zhu family's master and old servant were about to block, but the next instant, they couldn't move. Aerial finger strength struck their acupuncture points. They momentarily couldn't move, nor make a sound, stiff like puppets there. Passing through the hall in front, the dense smoke was already coming towards us. That was the scent of cypress. Walking through the hazy smoke, Duan Yun and little Ian immediately saw 2 huge palms placed on a rack. Beneath it, smoking cypress twig tips. Smoking. Someone was here smoking human bear paws. Next, a thin line hung under the eaves, with 4 human palms on it. It looked very much like drying smoked meat. These human palms were originally thick and wide like bear paws, but especially bearing human palm characteristics. When they appeared before the eyes by means of smoking and drying, there was a sense of horror. Some things, when cut separately and treated as food, instead can trigger gigantic object phobia. At this time, voices had already come through the smoke behind. "Quick! Come over. Your wife wants you to drink foot wash." Duan Yun and little Ian followed the smoke over, only to see a man standing there dressed in gaudy colors, looking like someone performing opera. But a clown. because he was indeed ugly. The moment their eyes met, the clown paused, questioning. "You're not old Zhu and old Zhao, who are you?" Duan Yun retorted. "Are these palms you're doing? I'm asking you." The clown seemed particularly prone to anger. His face wrinkled, legs kicked, then charged at Duan Yun. The ugly man lunged forward, looking extremely ferocious, like a fiend pouncing. In the next instant, he was already kneeling in front of Duan Yun. Because at this moment, Duan Yun used the shadowless leg, accurately kicking his crotch. Actually, Duan Yun didn't know the shadowless leg. He was just fast. As long as you're faster than others, you become shadowless to them. The ugly man's face was already twisted in pain. This face was already ugly. Now it was even uglier. Duan Yun now saw clearly that the reason this face was so blotchy was because it was covered with various skin infections, looking extremely disgusting. Being a villain and also ugly? Without another word, Duan Yun unleashed 10 consecutive kicks with the shadowless leg, accompanied by terrifying sounds of chaos. The ugly man grimaced in pain and said, "All gone? Still kicking. Bam, bam, bam." Another 3 kicks. These 3 kicks left the ugly man foaming at the mouth. He seemed finished, but suddenly, his speed increased sharply, his body bounced, and his hands moved like electricity, aiming again for Duan Yun's eyes. Turns out he was pretending. He sacrificed his balls and foamed at the mouth, all to feign weakness, to make Duan Yun drop his guard. And at this moment, he suddenly exploded with speed and power far beyond before, aiming to strike strong from weakness. Ah! Unfortunately, the scream wasn't from Duan Yun, but still from him. This move was both sinister and fast, but still couldn't match Duan Yun in speed. Duan Yun had already struck first, the gentle knife piercing into his eye socket. Thus the scream was his. "Wrong, wrong." The ugly man cried out in pain. "Who is causing trouble?" With a voice echoing, the enveloping smoke broke apart, revealing figures inside the backyard room. 12 women, nearly unclothed, served around a man. This man wore an elegant robe. If the man in Duan Yun's hands dressed like a clown, then this man's attire was that of a leading role, an unmistakable protagonist image. But at first glance, you'd feel he was very sinister. A string of exquisite pearls around his neck, the look refined and elegant, but his whole demeanor wasn't refined at all. Among the 12 women, 3 were kneeling to lick his feet, 4 were massaging his shoulders and back, 2 sat on him, while others busied feeding him. These 12 women should be Master Zhu's 12 wives, who now became this man's playthings. At this moment, the 12 women also looked over. When they saw Duan Yun, their eyes were filled with both pity and disdain. In this moment, it seemed they had already become this man's women, also feeling proud because of his prowess. The husbands who married them into their homes they barely knew. These kinds of women are only fit for strong men to own. "Let him go." While enjoying Mrs. Zhu's service, the man spoke with an inherent, fearsome authority. With a crack, Duan Yun's knife swept, slicing the ugly man's entire face off along with half of his neck. Now he's not ugly anymore. Afterwards, the ugly man fell to the ground screaming, as his vital neck connected to the face was cut. His life was already over. Duan Yun raised an eyebrow and looked at the man inside the room, saying, "I let him go." The man, as if playing a leading role, nodded and said, "Very good." He said very good, seeming not angry, but everyone could feel he was extremely angry. "Do you know, in my life I hate being interrupted while eating, especially when I'm eating the palm." At this time, a lady holding a human bear paw, half of which had been roasted, dared not pass it over. "Change clothes," the man commanded. As soon as the words fell, 2 women licking his feet had already brought over a bamboo screen. Another 2 women began attending to him behind the screen, helping him change clothes. Duan Yun had just slain his subordinate, blood staining the ground. Yet the man, in front of Duan Yun and Little Een, was changing behind the screen. It could be seen that Master Zhu's wives were well trained by him. their method of changing clothes skillful, coordinated, and orderly. You have to admit it did lend an air of elegance. When the clothing change was done, the person behind the screen made his dramatic debut. A true dramatic debut. His face was now heavily made up in various colors, the outfit like an acting robe, 6 spear flags inserted at his back, posing elegantly. Prepare to die. The man's voice carried a theatrical accent as he spoke. As soon as his theatrical accent started, with a flick of his body, he now wielded 2 spear flags in both hands. Seeing this, Duan-Yun couldn't help but mock, "Lunatic! Yaya! Meet your death!" His theatrical accent seemed like a joke, but at that instant, the spear flags in his hands weren't jokes. The spear flags turned, the spears moving like dragons, stirring the surrounding smoke into a terrifying vortex, stabbing towards Duan-Yun. Duan-Yun raised his knife and swept. Amid clangs, the spears and knife collided, sparks flying from the friction. In a mere instant, these flying sparks seemed to become a sudden rain, scattering all around. That was the knife and spear colliding fiercely, quickly and viciously. "Poison dragon drill! Ya ya ya!" the man shouted, spinning along with the spear in his hand. At this moment, it was as if man and spear were one, forming a drill, drilling towards Duan-Yun. Almost simultaneously, Duan-Yun's right hand had drawn the Huangshan golden sword from its scabbard. The combination of knife and sword, true qi coursing through, formed a giant pair of scissors. Spring equinox scissors. In an instant, the poison dragon spear and the spring equinox spear collided, altering the shapes of the surrounding air and smoke. Where the poison dragon spear passed, the smoke formed a wind tunnel, generating fearsome drilling power, as if drilling through the Zhu family's wives, causing them to emit faint hums. But in the next moment, where the spring equinox scissors passed, their hair fluttered, but their legs suddenly clamped tight, as if an invisible set of tongs had caught them midway. That was because Duan-Yun had added a romantic toy into the spring equinox scissors. One moment it was the poison dragon drill, the next the spring equinox scissors, and even the Xuanxiong palm dangling on the line swayed along, as if applauding and cheering. In just over 10 breaths, the two sides had exchanged about 30 moves, and the man's spear banners had doubled from 2 to 4, thrusting out in overlapping shadows. Duan-Yun continued to intertwine knife and sword, incessantly cutting and striking. Others moved fast, he moved fast. Others slowed, he slowed. The opera-like man initially felt he had the upper hand and a slight advantage, but by this time he sensed something was amiss. The opponent's endurance was strong. "Ya ya ya ya! Give me your life!" As his operatic tone grew louder, the spear banners in his hands moved faster. At the same time, everyone present experienced a strange sensation, as if this operatic tone was not newly emitted, but came from a distant ancient past. This ancient past was mysterious and desolate, and the operatic sound seemed to travel from the barren grass of antiquity to the courtyard of today, filled with the heavy and decaying taste of time, making one's heart pound. But suddenly the sound halted, as a foot had kicked into the man's groin. His flower boy's face twitched, and he said sullenly, "Another dirty trick like this, ya 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 ah." His operatic tone shook again, as the same spot got hit with another kick, and his toe was stepped on by the opponent. In a fit of rage, the man also stomped out, intending to step on Duan-Yun's toe, only to cry out in pain and hop back, because his foot had just stepped on Duan-Yun's toe sword. It was like stepping on a nail. By this time, the man, although struggling to maintain elegance, had a face that turned red, both from anger and pain. Cunning, deceitful, white mist. With a puff, it seemed as if the man bit his tongue and spat. But what flew out was not fresh red blood, but white mist, rolling dust. With a boom, the white mist suddenly ignited like rolling flames and rushed towards Duan-Yun. Even Duan-Yun had to raise his knife and sword to sweep left and right, shifting to a defensive stance. This flame, transformed from white mist, felt peculiar, as if it carried an odd magnetism, affecting the flow of one's qi blood. Duan Yun had no choice but to quicken his pace, as he realized that following the influence on his body's chi blood, his speed was half a beat slower than expected. To keep pace, he could only move half a beat faster. It can only be said that his control over his body was perfected to a rare degree, something even grandmasters or figures from major sects could not achieve with such rapid adjustments. The flames swept in like rolling red dust. Rolling dust scattered in the air, causing the movements of those around to slow down. The two girls looked surprised, their clear tongues leaving vivid scars, as if their movements were being filmed in slow motion. Those were the wounds left from licking this person before. Amidst this slowness, a few streaks of cold gleam suddenly sped up. Little Een, observing Duan Yun's fight, had been relaxed, for she could tell Duan Yun was handling it with ease. But as those streaks of cold light appeared, her expression turned worried, because they were hidden in that rolling red dust. Not only fast but also very insidious. She could perceive it from the outskirts, but for Duan Yun, in the midst of the red dust, it was difficult to notice. For spear banners suddenly pierced through the dust, towards Duan Yun's vital points. Almost simultaneously, Duan Yun's knife and sword, along with his feet, moved as well. The four guns struck, sinister and fierce, yet Duan Yun's hands and feet were not idle. The knife and sword fended off two spears, while his feet simultaneously shot out toe swords, colliding with them. In an instant, the terrifying explosion boomed, jarring eardrums, and after the collision, there was a brief separation. But just then, the operatic man suddenly shouted, "The poison dragon remains!" His head whipped around, and two spear banners lunged at Duan Yun like a poison dragon. It turned out that somehow, the spear banners that should have been on his back had been placed at his head, launching this unexpected attack. Seeing this, Duan Yun laughed heartily. Interesting. Almost at the same time, his knife and sword waved back into their sheaths, while his hands struck out. Today, let me show you the prowess of the young hero's fingers. Heart-to-heart clasp. This time it was little Een who answered. Whether it was herself or Lu Zhao of the Great Brightness sect, they had witnessed the power of this move, so it left a deep impression. Two streaks of firelight appeared, as the dragon-like spears collided with Duan Yun's fingers. Duan Yun clamped the two spear banners with his fingers. Due to the sheer speed and force of these spears, Duan Yun's feet involuntarily retreated several steps until his back broke through a wall and came to a stop. And just then, Duan Yun's fingers twisted, the spear banners snapped, and the spearheads, along with a part of the shafts, rebounded, stabbing straight towards the man's chest. The man couldn't dodge in time and let out a cry. His chest now had two protruding broken spears, from which the blood spurted, eerily akin to the white mist from his mouth, as if he were spraying milk. Duan Yun, after landing a strike, couldn't help but mimic that operatic tone. "Give me your life," as he executed the cloud-clearing palm with both hands, aiming at the spewing spearheads. The man's hands rose to block, but alas, he was half a beat too slow. The layer upon layer of palm force slammed into the broken spearheads on his chest, driving them deeper with tremendous shudders. Romantic toy! The intense feeling immediately spread through the entire body of the operatic man. His mouth opened, spitting blood. His legs trembled, urine flowed, and the pulsating on his chest, which had already been spraying, became extremely fierce, like an arrow. The old servant who had sneaked in to watch silently had his mouth agape in shock, only to be hit and collapse to the ground, rolling incessantly. Duan Yun combined his fingers as a sword, striking at the critical point on his chest. One must admit, this operatic man was not without skill. At least his endurance was notable. Even while being beaten until fluids flowed from both ends, he managed to react, his hips jerking upward, allowing his body to slide back. Thus, the sword finger meant for his chest landed squarely on his crotch. But this instead gave him some momentum to counter. After all, his lower area had already been kicked, rendering him numb to further pain there. The man had long lost his natural elegance, fear shining in his eyes. Such a master had arrived. Awakening Spring Mountain, the man suddenly shouted, his cheeks turning green as if changing a mask, and his palms struck out accordingly. Crash! His entire green face seemed to peel away, carried along by the palm wind, transforming into a green light shooting towards Duan Yun. Duan Yun struck with his palm, intending to disperse the green light. With a bang, the green light dispersed, resembling a mountain of greenery, yet also seeming to come alive, condensing as it pressed towards Duan Yun like a spring mountain. Such transformation caught Duan Yun off guard. He continued sweeping his palms in a whirlwind, seeking to isolate the verdant presence outside. Meanwhile, the operatic man launched a desperate counterattack. For he knew that if he didn't seize this rare opportunity, it would be his life forfeit. Flower Field Oolong, fragrant osmanthus and orchid, Bo Ya's broken string. With each shout, whether it was the blood spurting from his mouth and chest or his face changing colors like transformations, it continued altering. For a moment, the air was filled with multicolored blood like spilled dye all over. Meanwhile, the man leaped up, singing in operatic tones from above, "Iya ya ya, Overlord farewell ya." His operatic shift was utterly seamless. The Overlord's part was a high male voice, turning to a soft female voice for the farewell. Suddenly, the weather changed dramatically. In the eyes of Duan Yun and others, the operatic man's entire being transformed. He floated aloft like an immortal descending from the heavens, resembling an earthly overlord, and then a peerless songstress. Even Duan Yun and Little Een, usually confident, felt somewhat inferior. Indeed, young hero Duan, who prided himself on immense charisma, felt overshadowed by the opponent's dominion, and Little Een, lauded for exceptional beauty, momentarily felt less beautiful. Especially the opponent's chest, with tubes spurting blood. It should have been ungraceful, yet in this moment, it was as beautiful as a fairy scattering flowers. Admiration appeared on Little Yin's face. Duan Yun was no different. He felt inferior in terms of grandeur and also saw unprecedented beauty in the opponent. He had encountered many beauties before, such as the self-proclaimed most beautiful under heaven, the Jade Guanyin, and the alluring Star Palace Master, but now he felt this was true earthly beauty. In such a context, he found his chi mechanism and chi blood influenced, distracted by the opponent's majesty and allure. Majesty instilled fear, while beauty captivated him deeply, making it hard to act. He couldn't bear to damage this extreme beauty in the slightest. No, something is wrong. Illusion? It must be an illusion. Why would such an incredible illusion arise? Under this overlord farewell, everything seemed extraordinarily stunning, with the floating overlord farewell being so unrealistically beautiful. But Duan Yun knew that was a sign of even greater danger. Extraordinary wisdom. Activate. I command you to see through everything. In a flash, countless thoughts flashed through his mind like bolts of lightning. Duan Yun noticed the multicolored blood floating in the air. A sudden realization struck him. I understand now. Bugs. Poisonous bugs. The blood wasn't just blood. It had multicolored poisonous bugs. The bugs dispersed throughout the space, unconsciously emitting mysterious toxins that affected human consciousness, causing hallucinations. By this moment, the unbelievably beautiful Overlord Farewell had already descended. He held a spear in his hand, descending like a celestial immortal. An astonishing spear. The spear indeed was incredibly stunning, and the descending figure was exceptionally beautiful, appearing like an almost perfect painting before him, making one reluctant to destroy it. Because it was too perfect, choosing to be pierced by it rather than destroy it seemed preferable. As the saying goes, under the peony, dying as a ghost is also romantic. And at this instant, it was under a celestial immortal spear that one feels glamorously dying as a ghost. Even Little Een was willing to be impaled for that perfection. And Duan Yun? Breaking body sword energy. Damn it! Turn for me. Suddenly, immense breaking body sword energy whirled densely, like swirling silk rain, converting Duan Yun into a sword man. The moment the breaking body sword energy swept out, the scene before Duan Yun underwent transformation. The once unbelievably beautiful farewell, the once overwhelmingly stunning spear, all shifted. Farewell's face transformed into a disheveled man's face, looking like a heavily built man in drag, and his impeccable figure was replaced with the image of his chest with two guns erratically spurting milk, while the stunning spear was merely a broken flag spear. The flying blood was both blood and insects plus poison. When Duan Yun's breaking body sword energy sliced through the surrounding blood and insects, his eyes finally beheld the truth. Seeing such a farewell coming his way, Duan Yun felt nauseated at the thought of being taken advantage of by a pervert. With a squelch, the operatic man sighed with relief. A smile broke out on his face. This surely fatal spear had struck. Thus he wouldn't die. Yet a moment later, he found Duan Yun still standing intact, looking at him. He lowered his head in bewilderment, terror creeping up his face. How is this possible? The spear that should have pierced the opponent had pierced his own navel. The next moment, his body wavered, heavily crashing into the ground. Following that, a barrage of brutal punches and kicks resounded. Damn you! Pretending to be a beauty! Pretending to be a beauty! You're a creepy guy pretending to be a beauty! All men in drag deserve to die. Little Een and a host of madams, alongside the old servant rolling on the ground, remained under the effect of the hallucinogenic poison. Hence, they saw Duan Yun strike the stunning celestial immortal with a spear, and then assaulting her viciously with kicks and punches. A celestial immortal beautiful as this being hit? Is this still human? Is there no justice? This was the thought on everyone's mind. The old servant, tongue shredded by blood arrows, fiercely cried out, "Stop hitting! Stop hitting! Hitting her hurts this old servant's heart." Seeing the old servant so smitten, Duan Yun looked down at the dragman he'd beaten to a pulp, only feeling more revulsion. This damn pervert dressing as a woman, even beguiling an old man. Despicable. At this moment he struck even harder. The man wanted to explain that the others were poisoned, suggesting a truce, but unfortunately, young hero was in a frenzy, delivering dozens of kicks to his mouth, giving him no chance to speak. It's doomed. It's over. Bo Ya's broken string. At this point, one of them is a human palm. Like a bare paw human palm, the opera-singing man had been beaten so badly that even his own mother might not recognize him. Yet little Een and the others still thought he was a heavenly immortal descended to earth. Even with two broken spears stuck into his chest, and blood spraying out from them, he still appeared extraordinarily beautiful to them. In fact, the spraying blood added a unique charm. But in the eyes of little Een and his companions, Duan Yun was seen as the ultimate pure demon. Only such a pure demon could be so ruthless and cold-hearted, without even a slight softening in the face of the heavenly immortal's beauty and charm, focusing solely on beating him up mercilessly. Little Een couldn't help but recall his mother, that extremely beautiful and charming woman, who also died at the hands of this cold-hearted demon. In his eyes, a woman's beauty wasn't even worth mentioning. He didn't even bother to violate them, which was utterly abominable. Yaya! Come face your death! Come face your death! While beating up this cross-dressing brute, Duan Yun's extraordinary wisdom turned, attempting to mimic the theatrical tones of his opponent, and found it increasingly enjoyable. In little Yin's eyes, old demon Duan was having another bout of madness. Thud! The cross-dressing brute was stomped on the belly, spewing white-brown blood, looking like he'd had too much spoilt milk tea. At this moment, he used all his strength to hug Duan Yun's leg, pleading, "I was wrong. I was truly wrong. Stop hitting me. Stop hitting me." Duan Yun looked at him with disgust, saying, "What do you mean you were wrong? It feels more like you know you're about to die." The cross-dressing brute struggled. "I don't want to die. I really don't want to die. I don't know what I did wrong." Duan Yun turned his head to look at that old servant, asking, "Was he wrong?" The old servant shook his head and shouted, "No mistake. A heavenly immortal cannot be wrong. just like a heavenly immortal wouldn't have to defecate. Duan Yun turned his head again, looking at the trembling Master Zhu, and asked, "Did he have any wrongdoing taking over your mansion and lady?" Master Zhu was taken aback for a moment, then gritted his teeth and said, "No mistake. It's an honor for someone like him to take over my lady." Duan Yun's vision darkened. What on earth had driven the Zhu family manor people insane like this? He then glanced at the smoke drifting in the air, realizing it with a puzzled expression, and asked, "You're still under the influence?" "Yaya. Breaking body sword energy break. At that moment, countless threads of breaking body sword energy erupted from around Duan Yun, spinning like a school of fish, shredding those tiny poisonous insects mixed with blood. Professional in killing mosquitoes and insects, this young hero is, he could even confidently state, "No one understands pest control better than I do." Those pervasive poisonous insects were all torn to shreds. At this moment, the man stomped by Duan Yun could no longer control these symbiotic poisonous insects. So in a daze, the insects began to scatter. "Where do you think you're going?" Duan Yun leaped into the sky, as his breaking body sword energy continued spinning and killing insects, while two thick sword energy columns in his hands shot madly. Endless electric sword. In the eyes of everyone, Duan Yun raised his hand and yet another electric sword flew out. The electric sword ricocheted wildly in the swarm of insects, carrying blazing thunderfire, burning and killing the tiny pests. If evil deeds are done, even the insects must face annihilation. When all the poisonous insects around had been wiped out, the images in the eyes of the Zhu family manor people and little Een had already changed. The jaw-droppingly beautiful being, even with a spearhead through the chest spraying white blood, was transforming into the likeness of a big man in a dress. The crowd awoke as if from a dream. That man looked at little Een in despair, hoping to plead for his life from little Een, because at least as one of the demon's companions, she appeared kind-hearted and beautiful. Yet at that moment, little Een rudely opened her mouth and vomited. How could someone be so abstractly ugly? When little Een vomited, the old servant, who would have dearly liked to lick the heavenly immortal's feet, also vomited. This seemed to be contagious, as Master Zhu followed suit and vomited. Seeing this, Duan Yun said with a grave expression, "Do you now understand the torment I just went through?" With that, he said another, "Come face your death," and delivered a kick. At this moment, the man had reached the peak of ugliness and his injuries. He was barely hanging on. He struggled, continuing to plead, "Brother, I truly don't know what I did wrong." Duan Yun said, "Do you even realize that Lishui City is the land of young heroes, and you dared to cause trouble here and still claim you did nothing wrong? Could it be that you are that young hero?" Upon uttering the words young hero, the man went limp altogether. It seemed that in this world, the most terrifying words were not evil ghost, demon, or King Yen, but young hero. Young hero truly represented a more fearsome and unspeakable presence. It's over for him. At this moment, Duan Yun looked again at the old servant and Master Zhu and said, "He still thinks he did nothing wrong. What do you think?" With his mouth blasted open and bleeding, the old servant couldn't help but shout, "Ugly people! Deceiving others' feelings! Damnable!" In that instant, the old servant suddenly felt that the lady was still the most beautiful. The old servant loved the lady dearly. Master Zhu shook his head and said, "I was originally the great manor master of the Zhu family, living at the city edge of the land of young heroes, with a house and farmland, living a carefree life. Who knew this miscreant was so brazen, taking over my lady and my house? The second lady wanted to turn against him, and was horrifically abused. The old servant scolded him for bullying innocents, only to be violated 100 times. The old servant wailed, "Master, please stop talking." At this moment, Duan Yun looked at the old servant with shock and said, "You seem to be recovering well." The old servant wailed, pointing to his right ear. "Deafened. This ear has been played deaf by this scoundrel. Young hero must stand up for the old servant." Duan Yun looked down at the man on the ground and said, Do you have anything else to say? The man cried, Young hero, we're all people of the martial world, following its rules. With my skills, taking over a manor and gathering some people isn't such a big mistake, right? Then he thought of the Xuanqiong palm and said, Young hero, these Xuanqiong palms have been bred even before the land of young heroes started. I didn't know you were mingling here before. Duan Yun said, Are you implying it's my fault then? The man gritted his teeth and said, Young hero, we're all roaming the martial world, if not for the monk's face, then for the Buddha's. The abbot of the Dusk Temple is my elder brother. I'm going to hit. Duan Yun kicked out, showing no regard for the Buddha's face. It was better if this guy hadn't mentioned Dusk Temple. As soon as he did, Duan Yun got infuriated. The first time he was massively misunderstood as the old demon was because of that evil monk from Dusk Temple stirring up trouble. Indeed, birds of a feather flock together. What monk's face or Buddha's face? If Buddha makes a mistake, I'll kill Buddha when I meet one. Give me your life. Give me your life. Every time Duan Yun shouted while throwing a punch or a kick, Little Een, Master Zhu, and the old servant would vomit once. Soon after, Mrs. Zhu, who came to join the commotion, also started vomiting. Seventh lady and eighth lady, women who had licked this man's feet, were always the most mentally resilient and could endure disgust the best among them. But even they couldn't hold it in anymore and started vomiting violently. Because with each punch Duan Yun threw while shouting, this man would become uglier by a degree. The kind of extreme ugliness that could reach new levels was truly terrifying, capable of contaminating a person's mind. Unknowingly, due to the movement of extraordinary wisdom, Duan Yun suddenly grasped a new fist technique. Transform back to original form fist. His fists intended to beat these evil demons in human skin back to their original form, revealing their ugly true faces. This was more about transforming the appearance of these evil demons, showing their original faces, or rather, Duan Yun could punch the opponent into his envisioned ugly form. In young hero Duan's mind, this cross-dressing man was abstractly this ugly. After the beating, the man was also dead. Yet Little Een and the group continued vomiting uncontrollably. Duan Yun couldn't help but critique. So exaggerated. Even though he's ugly, you guys don't need to react this way, right? Wow. Wow. The group vomited again. Even if they didn't look at this man's abstract appearance, his earlier extreme ugliness would inevitably surface in their minds, making them feel nauseated. It took about the time of one tea stick burning for Little Een and company to gradually get used to the ugliness and stop vomiting. Seeing this, Duan Yun said, Finished vomiting? If you are, clean up the body. As a result of needing to collect the remains, Zhu family's old servant took another look at the corpse and promptly started vomiting again. This time, even bile came out. He gasped for air and said, Help he! Help he! Zhu family's old servant was a typical appearance judge, having served the Zhu family for so many years, never leaving because he got to see the beauty of the ladies. Therefore, his vomiting was the most severe. At this time, he found himself out of breath, showing symptoms of choking to death, only to see Duan Yun flash forward, giving a blow to his chest, causing the old servant to nearly fly up. But with that blow, the breath he couldn't take in suddenly became unblocked. The old servant lay on the ground, tears and snot streaming down his face, saying, I'm alive, I'm alive. Duan Yun and Little Een left, bringing along the human palms from Zhu family manor. The evil demon had been slain by the young hero, restoring peace to the land of young heroes. This was what the young hero was supposed to do. Since then, Little Een has become increasingly respectful and fearful of Duan Yun. Much like her mother, the Jade Guanyin, Little Een was very pleased and confident about her appearance. The Jade Guanyin was unwilling in her death because Duan Yun did not ravish her. It was a denial of her appearance, something Jade Guanyin couldn't accept. And the reason Little Een was even more in awe of Old Demon Duan was that she had just discovered Old Demon Duan actually had a fist technique that could make people ugly. The man devoured by the devouring hand died so miserably. One could say he died of ugliness in her heart, not only because he was inherently ugly but also due to old Demon Duan's punches. Every time one of old Demon Duan's punches landed, the man would become even uglier. This was something she witnessed firsthand and had to believe. Yes, rather than being tortured to death, killed, or ravished to death by old Demon Duan, she feared dying of ugliness more. What kind of devil is this guy to possess such a wicked fist technique? She didn't ask, and Duan Yun naturally didn't have a chance to tell her that the transform back to original form fist was a new insight from his extraordinary wisdom. Even if Duan Yun wanted to kill her, she wouldn't become much uglier, because this fist technique relied on young hero Duan's first impression. Little Yin's first impression on Duan Yun was quite Zuxian, so his fist technique wouldn't make her too ugly. The cross-dressing man's first impression on him was excessively ugly. Thus his fist technique made the opponent abstractly ugly. In fact, to be precise, it should be called face-only heart fist. However, young hero considers it the true form revealed fist. So it is the true form revealed fist. After all, for the original appearance of beauty and ugliness, Duan Yun has the final say. Little Yin couldn't help but mutter, "Your fist technique can make people ugly, but is there a technique to make people beautiful?" Duan Yun quipped, "He was already ugly. I just returned him to his essence. Why does it sound like I'm disfiguring him?" Little Yin didn't dare retort and said, "You're right." Duan Yun replied, "Of course. I also have ways to make people beautiful." Little Yin's beautiful eyes suddenly lit up and she said, "Really? Did you forget my occupation?" Duan Yun said with a look of disdain. "Young hero?" Little Yin asked, puzzled. Duan Yun shook his head. "Hero?" Duan Yun, looking like a child beyond teaching, shook his head. "Surely not old demon," Little Yin quipped. "Boo!" Suddenly, Little Yin let out a sound as Duan Yun tugged her ponytail. Duan Yun said loudly, "Doctor, gynecologist." Little Yin blinked, a bit dumbfounded. As a gynecologist, it's reasonable to have the ability to make people beautiful. My good friend Morong was originally out of balance and had freckles, but after my skillful hands treated him, he became fair and appealing, and who knows how many people he tempted. Duan Yun stated matter-of-factly, "Yes, tempting men is also tempting people." Little Yin said excitedly, "Really? Could you make me more beautiful?" Duan Yun said, "Why should I help you become beautiful? I'm your steed, your most intimate steed. If I look better, isn't it also reflecting well on you?" For a moment, Duan Yun found it reasoning he couldn't argue against. Making someone beautiful is a delicate task. "Let's see your performance once we're done here." Suddenly filled with motivation, Little Yin said, "Then let's hurry up." "Hurry for what?" "Hurry and finish the task. Aren't there other evil demons and outcasts around? Where are they? I'll charge with you. But it's getting dark." "What does it matter if it gets dark? Time waits for no one. Don't rush. I just finished off a batch. Let's rest for the night before we move on." Just finished one batch and you're resting. Not very impressive for a young hero. Damn. People need to catch their breath. I haven't even eaten. Mr. Duan, young hero Duan. Let me see where your limits lie, Little Yin said as if injected with adrenaline. Duan Yun suddenly felt like everything was turned upside down and quipped, "We should at least return these hands first." Yes, now Duan Yun was still carrying a bunch of hands. Some were smoked, some were drying, and some were half-roasted and half-barbecued. These human hands had been away from their owners for a long time, and even as a gynecologist, he couldn't reattach them to be used again. But ultimately, they had to be returned to their rightful owner, at least to relieve the fear of Xuanxiong Gang's people. Once their fears were relieved, the land of young heroes could gradually get back on track. After all, the Xuanxiong Gang played an irreplaceable role in Lishui City. After all, the city toilets still required them to unclog, and the city's construction work still required their effort. This land of young heroes, his hometown, will definitely become more beautiful in the future. Thinking of this, Duan Yun felt a sense of accomplishment. This time, he didn't return home in glory, Yet it was better than returning home in glory. Yellow Jade Island, deep within the Yellow Jade. By the time the Yellow Jade reached here, it had completely turned into liquid crystal clear. This scene was dreamy and beautiful, yet it brought with it a desolate silence. But at this moment, amidst the deathly silence of the Jade Mine, a sound drifted out. Second Sister. Why hasn't Big Sister returned yet? Exactly, Second Sister. Could Big Sister be in trouble? No, we have to rescue Sister. Some gourd-shaped entities swayed from side to side, looking as though they were about to burst forth. I want to get out. Give me a way to break. 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 With the sounds of the gourds ringing out, the depths of this yellow jade seemed to hide numerous terrifying evil beings. These voices were all female, some soft and tender, others sweet, and some clear and cold. If heard separately, each should have been very pleasant, but now mixed together, they gave a sense of chaos. With a pop, it seemed as if something truly fell ripe from its vine. One of the gourds split open, revealing a snow-white naked figure within the yellow jade. Second Sister is out. Second Sister. Second Sister. Second Sister. Second Sister opened her eyes, like a newborn seeing for the first time, appearing pure, yet her figure was mature, exuding the charm of a young girl. Second Sister. Hurry and check on Big Sister. Big Sister won't be in trouble, will she? Second Sister nodded and was about to sway her elegant figure upwards. At that moment, another gourd began to shake violently. Second Sister, wait for me. If Big Sister is in trouble, it's not right for you to go alone. Give me a way to break. 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 The remaining gourds shook and shouted, as if cheering her on. With a pop, this gourd split open, revealing a snow-white figure. Second Sister, I've come out. The snow-white figure stretched, and the two sisters looked at each other, their bodies swaying as they moved, resembling two mythical mermaids. Kill old demon. Find Big Sister. Rule the world beneath the yellow jade. Kill old demon. Find Big Sister. Rule the world beneath the yellow jade. Amidst the shouts of the other gourds, the two girls' figures swayed and disappeared into the depths of the yellow jade. Afterwards, the previously silent depths of the yellow jade, after a brief commotion, returned to silence once more. At night, Duanyun lay on the bed of the old house, gazing at the starry sky. This house was old after all, having been unkempt for 2 or 3 years, with such a large hole in the roof. Soon, little Een, who had been urging Duanyun to quickly set out to slay demons, also fell asleep under the eaves. Perhaps she was still thinking about becoming more beautiful. The longer Duanyun spent with this mount, the more he realized that her thoughts were relatively simple. This time she was eager to slay demons, probably lured by the idea of becoming more beautiful. But becoming beautiful doesn't necessarily come without a cost, just like the Murong brothers becoming handsome, which made them more likely to attract trouble, especially in the Yun and Yu states, unlike his natural handsomeness, which came without a price. And little Een? Honestly, little Een was already quite pretty, with a demeanor possessing a few traces of the Jade Guanyin. If she became even prettier, he had no idea what changes might occur. After all, he'd only ever tried whitening the Murong brothers before. Since little Een wanted to become more beautiful, practicing with her wouldn't hurt. Indeed, rigorous practice. With his extraordinary wisdom, as long as he dedicated himself, there was nothing he couldn't achieve. The matter with the Xuanxiong gang had come to a halt. Though there were still disciples with broken hands in the underground chamber who didn't believe and didn't dare to come out, this was all he could do. Especially after hearing his heroic name, the initially reluctant Xuanxiong gang disciples came out in droves, which pleased him. The name of young hero was quite effective in the land of young heroes. One must admit that devouring hand guy was quite special. His inner strength was at most on par with a sect elder, and in a straightforward physical confrontation, he might not even win against little Een, yet his tenacity and sinister ways far exceeded hers. It was all because of his blood. The blood carried bugs, and the bugs carried poison, easily inducing hallucinations. These hallucinations were deadly, enough for him to use weakness to overcome strength. In reality, there were indeed skilled individuals in the martial world whose paper strength in inner strength and techniques exceeded the devouring hand guy, yet they still fell prey to him. The martial world is indeed perilous, not a contest of size or seniority, nor inner strength or techniques guaranteeing victory. But this time, the devouring hand guy met his match. Old Demon Duan was too strong, thus rendering his weakness overcoming strength strategy ineffective. Did that guy say before he died that the abbot of Dusk Temple was his relative? I was just worrying about not being able to find your whole family, and you just blurted it out. Thinking about those two ladies licking his feet, Duan Yun became increasingly convinced this was no lie, because when he first saw the evil monk of Dusk Temple, that man also let women lick his feet with the same barefootedness. Did all Dusk Temple people have a foot-licking fetish? These heretical and evil paths were things he'd noted down, but got forgotten amidst the countless events that followed. Thus, it seemed the timing of his return was perfect, giving him a great opportunity to review and refresh his memories. First, investigate the great medicine in Lingshui, then visit Dusk Temple to see what's going on and to kill that man's relatives. Tonight, Duan Yun had already experimented, and while using Jade Sword here, he could faintly catch a hint of fragrance in his breath. Although the fragrance was not obvious, it did go from nothing to something. Doesn't this prove he's getting closer to the great medicine? In the morning, Duan Yun was making food in the kitchen. This kind of chore should have been done by Little Een, but Duan Yun was doing it himself because he enjoyed it. Whether a house appears dilapidated depends on its homely atmosphere. A house without a homely atmosphere, no matter how grand, would feel cold and even lifeless. Since no one lived in this old house, decay was inevitable, but ultimately, it was his house. Though small and shabby, he quite liked it. If he got old one day, he might come back here to retire. Hence, the long-unused stove was relit. Little Een sat on the steps, watching Duan Yun's shadow moving in the kitchen. For a moment, she found it increasingly difficult to understand this demon. Because at this moment, this demon looked like an ordinary person. An overly handsome, ordinary person who might accidentally be seduced by women in the martial world when he goes out. But only those who'd seen his methods would know how terrifying he was. It's often said that handsome men can be deceitful, and old Demon Duan was especially true to this saying. Just as the food was halfway cooked, there was a knock at the door. Visitors so early? Duan Yun said confusedly. Duan Yun washed his hands, and with a creak, opened the door. Outside stood a family of 3. The man and woman carried large and small bags, and the little child next to them looked at him with curiosity. They were indeed acquaintances. "Dr. Duan, you're really back," the man said excitedly. Duan Yun responded with a smile and said, "Just got back yesterday. Come in. Come in." It wasn't someone else. It was the young Mr. Zhao's family, whom Duan Yun had first helped with the delivery. At this, young Mr. Zhao quickly urged his son, "Call him uncle. No, call him godfather. Without him, you wouldn't be here." The young mister was under 3 years old and was obviously nervous. He said, Godfather." At this point, Lady Zhao noticed the slightly confused Little Een standing there and couldn't help but say, "Is this Mrs. Duan?" When Duan Yun was away, to avoid unnecessary misunderstandings, he always had Little Een pose as his cousin. But these were familiar faces, even acquaintances of the previous generation, so it was hard to pretend. Little Een was at a loss about how to respond. Just as she was about to say she was his cousin, Duan Yun said first, "Lady, you're too kind." Young Mr. Zhao seemed even more excited than Duan Yun, saying, "When did you get married? You didn't invite us to the celebration." Duan Yun quickly explained, "The journey was long, and it was a spontaneous decision, so we didn't hold a big celebration, no banquet." This soon filled the previously cold house with a lively atmosphere. Upon knowing Duan Yun was leaving again in 2 days, young Mr. Zhao couldn't help but feel regretful. It was clear he genuinely regarded Duan Yun as a friend. It must be said, not until young Mr. Zhao's family's arrival did Duan Yun's homecoming become tangible. With acquaintances, with friends, only then does a hometown feel like home, something streets and houses can't provide. After many farewells, leaving behind bags of gifts, young Mr. Zhao's family finally left. At this point, Littleine found it even harder to understand the person before her, and couldn't help but say, "I didn't expect you to really be a proper doctor in the past. The kind that saves lives." Duan Yun corrected, "I'm still a proper doctor now. After eating, let's head out." Duan Yun reminded, initially feeling her status was elevated by being thought of as Mrs. Duan. Littleine quickly returned to reality, because mentioning departure reminded her of the journey, and once on the road, she'd still be the Mount. It must be said, perhaps being too high profile among the townsfolk, fearing gossip, Duan Yun didn't ride Littleine within Lishui City. At this point, he truly looked like an ordinary gynecologist who barely made ends meet, returning to visit his old residence along the way. After lunch, Duan Yun and Littleine left the land of young heroes and headed towards Lingshui City. Midway, they heard good news that, due to the efforts of the Xuancheng gang disciples, the public toilet in the west of the city was finally operational. As for more than half of the disciples losing their bare paws, everyone was discussing it, but no one could make sense of it. On the road, it was the season when grass grows and birds fly in Yun State. A vast expanse of green filled their view. Because of the large bags brought by young Mr. Zhao, they both ate well along the way. It was 4 days' travel from here to Lingshui City, but because Littleine was much faster than a horse, they only needed 2 days. At night, as usual, they camped in the wilderness. This time, it was by the river. The turquoise river flowed silently, and the bank was a pebbled shallow beach. This night, the starry sky reflected in the river, making the heavens and earth both filled with a galaxy. Ever since Duan Yun crossed over, he felt this mad, tattered world could only be said to surpass the previous world in its fresh air. Whenever weather permitted, looking up revealed a brilliant galaxy rarely seen in previous urban life. It must be said, the scenery here indeed held a desolate kind of beauty. On this tranquil night of camping, nothing happened, and both Duan Yun and Littleine slept quite soundly. To be honest, camping in the wilderness so peacefully without any incidents, even Littleine felt somewhat unaccustomed to it. Duan Yun suddenly thought that encountering twin sisters and girls like Lu Zhao in the wild was actually quite interesting. Thereafter, Duan Yun spurred on, wishing to reach Lingshui City by nightfall. Midway, Littleine felt tired, but with Duan Yun leaning back, Littleine couldn't help but let out light hums, jolting with renewed vigor. "What is this now?" Littleine couldn't help but hum softly. "It's low-intensity Ming Chao. You need to gradually adapt to the strength of Ming Chao so that you can expand your limits," Duan Yun explained. With the support of some Ming Chao, Littleine indeed felt much more energetic, charging forward with vigor. By dusk, the outline of a city was already visible. That was Lingshui City. It must be said, the area around Lingshui City was quite prosperous. The terrain was relatively flat, and the city outskirts were vast farmland areas. Green wheat fields and melon fields were everywhere, stretching far into the distance. By this time, despite the stimulant of Ming Chao, Littleine was somewhat weary and said, "I'm so thirsty." Duan Yun was also a bit parched, saying, "Then let's go buy a melon up ahead." Duan Yun dismounted from Littleine and approached a melon field nearby to buy a melon from the farmer. Littleine watched the farmer selecting melons and couldn't help but ask, "Are these melons guaranteed to be sweet?" The farmer said, "Look at this young lady, pretty as a picture, but what is she saying? My son lays melons are famous far and wide. Would I sell you unripe ones?" It was clear that the farmer was very confident and even proud of his melons. Indeed, ordinary people seeing a beauty like Littleine would be all smiles, whereas this melon farmer Sunlay seemed sarcastic due to melon concerns. As he picked out 2 melons, the farmer Sunlay said, "Melons are my livelihood and reputation. If these aren't ripe and sweet, Feel free to smack my face with a shoe sole. How much for them? 1 melon costs 2 taels. 2 melons for 3 taels of silver. Little Een couldn't help but complain. Are these melons made of gold? If you think they're expensive, then don't buy them. I'm not forcing you, Sun Lei said pridefully. At this price, even Duan Yun, who wasn't particularly interested in melons, was intrigued. He paid, and each holding a melon, sat by the roadside with Little Een to start eating these pricey melons. Little Een, having been sarcastically teased and faced with expensive melons, initially wanted to find faults, but once she started eating, she was too engrossed to speak. The melons were simply too delicious. Seeing this, Sun Lei couldn't help but smugly ask, "These melons are fine, aren't they?" With an innocent and romantic expression, Little Een said, "These melons are genuinely sweet. Blood watermelon can't be unsweet. You could kick my head like a ball," Sun Lei explained. At that point, Duan Yun couldn't help but curiously ask, "Blood watermelon? The flesh inside is indeed blood red." Sun Lei shook his head. "You two must be out-of-towners? Never heard of Frost Blood Pavilion? These watermelons are infused with the blood of Frost Blood Pavilion's fairies. How could they not be sweet?" Upon hearing this, both Duan Yun and Little Een paused their watermelon eating. They suddenly found the melons less appealing. Duan Yun couldn't help but ask, "Fairy blood? From where?" Duan Yun was quite concerned about the blood inside the blood watermelon and couldn't resist asking for some details. The watermelon seller Sun Lei said proudly, "Blood from where? This isn't something we mere mortals can manage. Just enjoy the watermelon and keep out of the fairies' matters." Duan Yun couldn't help but gripe, "Are you sure this fairy isn't sick? Some diseases can be transmitted through blood." Upon hearing this, Little Een tossed aside the pricey watermelon she was holding. Seeing her reaction, Sun Lei angrily retorted, "What sickness nonsense! Even if the fairy has a disease and passes it to you, it would be a blessing for you. It's not just any disease. Ordinary folks would be fortunate to get it." Talking about the fairy from the Frost Blood Pavilion, the watermelon seller Sun Lei couldn't help but puff his chest out in pride. His eyes filled with reverent light. Suddenly, Duan Yun felt that this watermelon might actually be toxic. Looking at the watermelon seller, it seemed that someone might have already been affected. Damn! The terrifying memories of some false information from his past life came rushing back. Duan Yun remembered reading about a time when there was a rumor that watermelons had needle marks, where people with AIDS would inject their blood into them, and eating those watermelons would get one infected, which left him anxious for quite some time after eating a watermelon back then. It's like how, as a child, if you accidentally swallowed watermelon seeds, adults would tease you that the seeds would grow inside your stomach, and vines would sprout from your ears. Though it was false, the fear felt all too real at the time. How similar this is to the needle-marked watermelon from his past life. In his previous life, he believed in science and managed to overcome his fears. But in this world, science seems to be disregarded. However, given his unparalleled cultivation talent and extraordinary wisdom, he could even deal with a biological toxin, but he couldn't handle the disgust. Where did this fairy's blood come from being mixed into the watermelon? Can't be from there, can it? These women from the Frost Blood Pavilion must be crazy. What decent woman mixes her blood into a watermelon for people to eat? At this time, Sun Lei saw that Duan Yun and Little Een took issue with his watermelon, so he couldn't help but complain. "You foreigners know nothing. This fairy blood watermelon is precious beyond measure. Even with money you might not get it. I shouldn't have kindly sold it to you." What he said wasn't untrue. Even at dusk, many people still came, specifically asking to buy the fairy blood watermelon. Some wanted to buy more, but Sun Lei and his assistants wouldn't sell them, saying the fairy had ordered not to hoard the melons, so more people could have a taste of the fairy blood melon. Duan Yun couldn't help but ask another watermelon buyer nearby, "Aren't you worried there's disease in that blood?" The buyer looked at Duan Yun and said, "You're not from around here, are you? This melon contains blood from the Frost Blood Pavilion's fairy. Eating it means you're connected to the fairy. If you also get the fairy's disease, isn't that incredible? You're linked with the fairy by sharing the same illness." Thinking the blood in the melon is so sweet, And the fairy is so beautiful. Talking up to this point, the buyer couldn't resist humming softly. For a moment, Duan Yun thought the people here were insane, eating the blood of an unknown woman, and they hummed with pleasure. At this moment, Littleine raised another concern. Don't you guys find it expensive? Expensive where? This melon is actually too cheap. It's really hard work for the fairies to infuse it with blood. Just the other day, I sold my wife for this one mouthful of melon. Another person quickly chimed in. Duan Yun noticed his eyes were bloodshot, looking sickly, yet he seemed highly energetic. Seeing Duan Yun and Littleine constantly asking questions, Sun Lei approached with a sinister expression. You two are looking for trouble, aren't you? I kindly sold you 2 fairy blood melons. Yet you speak ill here. The fairy isn't something you can criticize. Duan Yun, with a compassionate heart, said, I'm just worried about the disease in the fairy's blood. It would be troublesome if it spreads. If you keep talking nonsense, I'll slice you up. I told you there aren't any diseases. Even if there were, it would be a blessing from the fairy. A blessing. Ordinary folks couldn't even desire it. While speaking, Sun Lei had already taken out a watermelon knife, looking fierce. As if anyone who dared speak ill of the fairy, it would be worse than killing his mother. At this time, a watermelon buyer chimed in. What disease or not? Isn't it just developing willow-shaped red spots on the body? Itching a little? I so wish to have it. That's a fairy's illness. My neighbor got it and the fairy came to visit him. And what happened afterwards? He died. But the fairy came to see him. Isn't it worthwhile even in death? Absolutely, totally worthwhile. Moreover, during the time he had the illness, he looked prettier, got a lot stronger, and even slept with several men. Many guys followed him wholeheartedly after sleeping with him. He enjoyed it all and even had the fairy come see him. It's truly profitable. Everyone agreed, becoming more eager to buy the watermelon, declaring they'd sell their daughters to buy it. Saying this, a watermelon buyer glanced at Duan Yun, looking him up and down. If I ate the blood melon and changed like that, I'd even sleep with you. Oh damn. Deadly man hormone. The other watermelon buyers were also displeased with Duan Yun's comments, all complaining with hostile eyes. It seemed that both the watermelon sellers and buyers held a mysterious reverence for the blood melon and the frost blood pavilion fairy, hence harboring significant animosity towards the doctor concerned about disease spread and the young hero criticizing the selling of overpriced melons. Duan Yun did not act on this right away, but instead left with Littleine. On the way, Littleine couldn't help but say, Aren't you, the young hero, going to do something about this? Duan Yun waved his hand and said, How can I not do something? I'm already feeling sick. Better not be where that blood came from. Littleine asked curiously, Whose blood is that? Kid, stay out of this. Humph. Daring to disgust this young hero with suspicious blood, it might be spreading a virus, and on top of that selling overpriced melons to disrupt the market. The Frost Blood Pavilion must be investigated urgently, Duan Yun analyzed. Littleine looked at him and felt like the familiar old demon Duan was back, saying, But you said the Great Medicine and the Dusk Temple issues are also urgent. Duan Yun glanced at her, speaking earnestly. Now you know how rotten this place is, and how busy it is to be a young hero. It seems Lingshui City needs a good cleansing. Saying this, he stuffed the booklet into his pocket. In Littleine's eyes, Duan Yun didn't seem exhausted from being so busy, but rather excited. Yes, she confirmed once more, old demon Duan has an extermination syndrome. He wouldn't feel comfortable if he didn't wipe out a sect every couple of days. Honestly, she just thought that Frost Blood Pavilion's melons were overpriced. Whether ordinary people got sick didn't matter, did it? Just like those buyers of melons said, getting the same sickness as the fairies, even if it led to death, was worth it. Anyway, as long as martial arts experts like them didn't get sick, it was fine. Lingshui City is indeed quite bustling. At least it's livelier than Lishui Town. By this time, it was almost dark, but there were still many people on the city streets. Various vehicles were hauling grains and watermelons, coming and going, and there were also many vendors by the roadside. These vendors sold everything. Duan Yun and Little Een even saw a vendor selling a wife. The sign selling the wife and daughter read, "Selling my beloved wife in tears, just for fairy melons. I can't live without the melons." Earlier in the melon fields, Duan Yun heard someone say they sold their wife to buy melons. He thought they were bragging, but as soon as they entered the city, they saw a real example. Duan Yun stood in front of the stall, where the man had bloodshot eyes and said excitedly, "Sir, buy my wife. We just married half a year ago, half is new." Duan Yun asked, "Is the fairy melon better than your wife? What happens if you don't eat it?" "Without eating, I can't live. Anyway, the taste is extraordinary, like floating, an ethereal sensation that you wouldn't understand. In my heart, there's only the fairy now. Without eating their blood melons, I can't go on. Please buy my wife." His wife heard this and couldn't help but sob. "Why are you crying? Your makeup's smudged. How will I sell you?" Listening to his description, Duan Yun couldn't help but think, why does it sound like addiction? Though the blood melon is sweet, he didn't feel the urge as strongly. Duan Yun couldn't understand it at that moment and moved on. Yes, these blood melons definitely have a problem. The man was similar to those earlier melon buyers, with bloodshot eyes, looking both weary and manic. No, he was likely the worst case he'd seen. Duan Yun glanced down the street, noticing more than 1 or 2 people with bloodshot eyes. How many people had fallen for this? In that moment, Duan Yun suddenly realized how malicious this world, this martial world, truly was. In the past, he was kicked around like a ball by the Xuanqiong gang disciples in Lishui City, finding it difficult, relying solely on his extraordinary wisdom to get through. And now he realized Lingshui City was even harder. For ordinary people, pitfalls were everywhere. Yes, standing here, he could already smell the medicinal aroma when he unleashed Jade Sword. If they weren't turning into great medicine, they were getting sick from blood watermelons. The place looked lively but was more hellish than his hometown ever was. In comparison, dealing with temper tantrum children seemed almost trivial. This was just the tip of the iceberg. Who knows how many evil demons lurked beneath? Indeed, they weren't far from the Dusk Temple, where evil monks gathered. Suddenly, there was a commotion in the crowd behind. Duan Yun and Little Een followed the excitement, only to find that the wife-selling man's wife had been taken. "Silver? What silver? Wang Sisui here only likes to freeload. Take her away." The wife-selling man wailed witnessing this. "Lord Sisui, just one tael of silver. I just want half a melon. Just half. Get lost." The bodyguard kicked him, and the man flew like a football, unable to get up for a while. The bystanders stretched their necks to watch the spectacle, some even applauding with blank expressions. Seeing this scene, Duan Yun thought of his past self. These people were so unreasonable. It was too hard for ordinary people to survive. With a muffled thud, like a butcher's knife sinking into meat, it echoed with a heavy sound. Wang Sisui, who had just snatched someone's wife, was about to open his mouth when he heard such a sound. Instinctively lowering his head, he saw a blood blossom blooming on his chest. At some point, there was a blood hole through his chest, from back to front, bleeding out. His followers noticed, panicking. "Lord Shui, blood, blood." Wang Sisui, after all, was an old riverside who had survived so long by freeloading, relying not just on connections but on tactics. Waving his hand, he said, "Don't panic. I just need to press Tuqi and Jigong acupoints, and the blood will stop immediately." As soon as he spoke, pressing his fingers on those acupoints, the gushing blood did indeed stop. It stopped. "Lord Shui is amazing." As his followers praised, suddenly hissing sounds erupted again. His follower screamed, "Lord Shui, you're bleeding from your butt and shoulders." "Ah!" Turning his head, Wang Sisui found 3 more blood holes on his shoulders and buttocks, blood gushing out. "Don't panic, I just need to." Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Before he could finish, several more blood holes appeared, spraying blood everywhere. From a distance, he seemed to be bleeding all over. By this point, Wang Sisui fell to the ground, screaming in panic. Who unleashed the sword chi? I'm from the Axe Gang. Who unleashed the sword chi? We have no grievances, calm down. Suddenly, Wang Sisui heard a voice. Your freeloading is unreasonable. Stunned, Wang Sisui replied, What's unreasonable about it? I've done this for years. After I play with such women, I always give them up to the gang, never keeping them. This sentence was instinctively blurted out in fear, and Wang Sisui regretted it immediately. He shouldn't have been so sincere. Over years of strutting here, he'd momentarily forgotten to be evasive. Today he met a master. When facing such a master, first you should concede, then find brothers to slaughter his family. Wang Sisui quickly said, I was wrong. With 3 sharp puffs, the sounds were clear, even deafening. These 3 sword chi pierced through his head, with the last one even passing through his right ear. Wang Sisui toppled sideways, hitting the ground with a thud. Even as a martial artist at the Chi-Si realm peak with more life force than an ordinary person, he couldn't get up again. He was the most loyal dog of the Axe Gang's boss, who had a fire spirit evil god backing him, and he couldn't fathom anyone daring to act against him here. Who would be so bold? Huh? He couldn't understand, and so he died. Ah! Lord Shui. Something happened to Lord Shui. Lord Shui is dead. Only then did the crowd let out piercing screams, fleeing in terror as if the real human was the one who just died. And as if the man kicked away earlier, who hadn't gotten up since, wasn't human. Littleine looked on at this scene and said, Isn't this too high profile? Duan Yun replied, In this shitty place, how does a young hero resist taking action? Suddenly, a loud cracking sound echoed. In the sky, a firework ignited. The firework exploded in the air, forming the shape of a red axe. Someone noticed and screamed, It's the Blood Axe. The Axe Gang is gathering for a kill. Run! Immediately, everyone on the street, men, women, children, the old and the weak, all ran like the wind, creating gusts as they fled. Littleine, seeing this, said, Seems like you've stirred up trouble. In the darkened sky, the blood-red axe fireworks stood out starkly. The citizens of Lingshui City, upon seeing this display, were so terrified that they felt half their souls had left them, running for their lives. The people around fled quickly, but those approaching came even quicker. Clatter, 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 clatter. That was the sound of boots on cobblestone streets. In less than the time it takes to drink half a cup of tea, this street was sealed off as one after another, figures in black strode in. They held axes in their hands, black headbands wrapped around their heads, exuding a menacing aura. The crucial part was their steps. In Duan Yun's eyes, these Axe Gang members were practically marching in a disciplined fashion. Their legs kicked high and landed swiftly, moving in perfect unison. So their footsteps sounded almost in synchrony, like war drums, striking fear into people's hearts. Honestly, while this did create quite the imposing scene in Duan Yun's eyes, it seemed a bit ludicrous. It was as if their bodies were split in half, the upper halves wielding axes with ferocity, each with different postures, while the lower halves seemed cast from the same mold, marching in uniform steps. One must admit, solely by the discipline of their marching, this Axe Gang was definitely not your typical group. Duan Yun also realized that this synchronized march was some sort of array, which not only boosted their aura but also their killing intent. In an instant, as about 200 Axe Gang members marched forward, that killing intent coalesced, becoming like a dark cloud pressing down. Facing this terrifying intent, the citizens who hadn't managed to flee were completely terrified, unable to move at all. An old man, who appeared to have a weak heart, had sat down abruptly on the ground, clutching his chest and gasping for breath. Littleine stood to the side, surveying the surroundings. Following old demon Duan in their bloody endeavors, she had seen it all, but to witness a gang create such a spectacle was beyond her expectations. She had teasingly mentioned Duan Yun causing trouble earlier, not expecting it to indeed stir up some commotion. Instead, this made Littleine excited. She loved watching old Demon Duan fight. The stronger the opponent, the better. After all, after following old Demon Duan for so long and even sparring with him, her threshold was quite high. Who did this? Who? At this moment, a burly man with a black and gold headband, even his axe adorned with gold edges, arrived at Wang Sishui's corpse, shouting loudly. He appeared brawny and rugged, with a bushy beard, but his voice was surprisingly high-pitched. Yes, similar to a woman's sharp voice. This being Yun State's territory, along with the way he was clutching the corpse mournfully, Duan Yun reasonably suspected he was a heartbroken man-lover. The bearded man surveyed the surroundings and said, "No one's coming out? Then kill them all." In order to find the culprit, he was willing to kill the wrong people, sparing none. All the Axe Gang disciples stepped forward, about to start an indiscriminate slaughter on this street. Screams erupted from the crowd, but then a voice rang out, "I did it!" Duan Yun stepped forward. A gust of wind stirred, blowing his robe and hair, creating a striking image in little Een and others' eyes. The bearded man's eyes turned red, displaying the look of someone who had lost something precious. He waved his hand and shouted, "Kill!" As soon as he finished speaking, more than 10 axes whistled through the air, hurtling towards Duan Yun. These axes flew with incredible speed and accuracy. To the onlookers, it seemed as if they could already see a scene of Duan Yun covered in axes. Under the Axe Gang's blood axes, none survived. Previously, they had witnessed a master of Qinggong, leaping 3 zhang high, thinking he could escape, laughing as he flew away, only to suddenly have dozens of axes appear on his body and fall to his death. Rustle, rustle, rustle. It was like the sound of flowing water. Duan Yun's sleeves fluttered, and the surrounding air moved like water. For a fleeting moment, he seemed to have grown 3 heads and 6 arms, as his hands deftly caught 16 axes, all of which he grasped tightly, spinning them to form a sphere. The next instant, Duan Yun flicked his hand, and the spherical group of axes flew backward, crashing into the ranks of the Axe Gang. In an instant, axes howled, striking the members of the Axe Gang, with screams resonating. Duan Yun stood there, as if he hadn't moved at all. Duan Yun discovered that, as he practiced for over 2.5 years, his mastery of true qi became more proficient, allowing him to craft techniques at will. For instance, in this move of spinning axes, he even incorporated his understanding of Tai Chi boxing. 16 axes flew back into the Axe Gang's formation, immediately taking down 28 members, 12 of whom were struck by the axe's spinning force, causing the struck ones to spin as well, leading to them accidentally cleaving their own companions. At this point, the bearded man lifted his head, perplexed. A master! Yet, despite his surprise, he was not flustered. He discarded the corpse of his beloved to the ground and leaped into the Axe Gang's formation. Blood Axe Manifestation! With his sharp shout, the Axe Gang members responded with a loud cry, and the previously dark cloud-like evil chi suddenly transformed into numerous axe-shaped Dharma images. This array could condense Dharma images, a unique technique indeed. This transformation reminded Duan Yun of the White Sox sect. Some of the White Sox sect's arrays allowed the blending of energy flows, enabling ordinary martial artists to combine and display the power of masters. The Axe Gang's array bore a similar resemblance. The martial world truly harbored hidden talents. Even a gang had such unique merits. Duan Yun stepped forward boldly. "I've got Dharma image too." Saying this, he formed a sword technique with his hand, and Netherworld sword chi sprayed like rain, revealing the Netherworld Jade Sword Immortal Dharma. This time, if you observe closely, you'll find that Black Silk Jade Sword Immortal has more details than before. That's because there are more letters on the stockings. Yes, it's for increasing attack speed. With so many axes in the Axe Gang, how could they not increase attack speed? When the blood-colored axe Dharma image appeared, even the black axe of the Axe Gang was reflected into vivid red. Blood kill! The voice of the bearded man had just fallen when more than 100 blood-colored axes flew out spinning. In an instant, the street rained axes, spinning axes. The Axe Gang often drank and ate meat, especially during New Year, So before eating meat, they would have a blood pork feast. With around 100 people, the blood axe formation slaughtered with several huge pigs inside, sliced into pieces in a short time, showing the fierceness and fearfulness of this array. At this moment, facing this formation stronger and more potent was Duan Yun alone. No, he seemed alone, but he actually had the Dharma image Xiao Yu. Almost simultaneously, Duan Yun and Xiao Yu struck together. Their technique was the same. It was Jade Sword Finger. In an instant, Jade Sword Finger shot out like a sudden storm, the black sword light clashing with the blood axe, making a muffled sound. Duan Yun was just one person, even with the Dharma image only had 20 fingers, but at this moment, he and Xiao Yu continued to speed up, their hands flailing until they turned into shadows, Jade Sword Finger sword energy flying out like it cost nothing. The remnants of the previous Jade Sword Finger sword energy hadn't dissipated before being covered by new sword energy traces. At one time, he and the Dharma image seemed like they had 100 fingers shooting out sword energy. Meanwhile, the letters on black silk Jade Sword Immortal Dharma flashed with light. What does it mean to increase attack speed? Little Lean, seeing this scene, tightly squeezed her legs together. She knew the fingers of old demon Duan were impressive, but she didn't expect him to be so fast. If such fast fingers were to beckon onto her, wouldn't she go mad? Even if teaming up with her second sister, she couldn't handle such attack speed. What about with her third sister added? Initially, the blood axe formation was menacing. Blood-red axe light filled the air, coloring the entire street vividly red as if stained with menstrual blood. It's safe to say that at this moment, the Axe Gang held the absolute initiative. Yet, as time passed, the spinning axes were constantly assaulted by Jade Sword Finger, the blood color fading, shaken even when freshly thrown. By this time, the bearded man had finally panicked. Under the blood axe formation, lost souls everywhere. Since mastering this formation, there haven't been any survivors. Even some well-known sect elder figures could only become souls under the axe. But now, this formation was broken by force by one person. The blood axe formation prided on speed and ruthlessness, falling like a blood rain from the sky. Yet the person and Dharma image they're flicking their fingers even faster and fiercer. No, looking at those flicking fingers turned after images, he was unsure if the opponent was human. To his knowledge, this finger sword energy is the hardest to practice in swordsmanship. He only knew years ago, there was a pair of brothers here, claiming to be Lingshui twin heroes, who practiced this finger sword. But their skills were negligible. And this person here, with such finger moves, wouldn't his hand cramp? Duan Yun kept flicking, instinctively flicking. Honestly, he was barely keeping up with his own speed, like driving a high-powered speeding sports car, relying on instinct and experience for corners and acceleration. Ah! 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 Bursting blood formed flying spills. Axe Gang members hit by sword energy. Screams continuously erupted. In just a brief period, the Axe Gang was at a disadvantage. In the eyes of the crowd, this man like a doctor seemed like he enveloped all Axe Gang members alone. The bearded man was indeed the leader. Even in this situation, he noticed a detail. And that was that this man wasn't only taking down their axes with finger sword energy and killing them, but also protecting the surrounding people. Axes flying so wildly, axes inevitably flying random, yet not a single axe mistakenly injured a civilian, all due to the man intercepting with finger timely. The bearded man suddenly had a flash of wisdom, found a way to survive, and ordered, "Kill all civilians." Remaining Axe Gang members were struggling to persist. Killing civilians would split their focus, making losses tragic, yet for so long the leader's words were law, so as soon as the voice fell, they instinctively swung axes toward surrounding civilians. Civilians, initially watching this bloodthirsty scene, suddenly saw axes flying their way, felt thrilled momentarily, forgetting to dodge. Duan Yun saw through their intent at once, shouted loudly, "Bold! Endless electric sword!" With a zip, Jade Sword Finger continued flicking while several electric swords shot out. These electric swords, upon encountering the axes, shattered them, bouncing towards other axes. In an instant, the Jade Sword Finger sword energy and the electric sword nearly formed a web, enveloping the axes, preventing any from escaping. Ah! 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 At this moment, an electric sword fell into the Axe Gang crowd, crazily bouncing around. This move completely shattered the Axe Gang, unable to maintain even the most basic formation. Duan Yun's figure flickered. He was already above the Blood Axe Gang. Sword Chi Heaven and Earth Destruction. Duan Yun and Dharma Image Xiaoyu spun in the air, clothes fluttering like clouds while countless sword chi fingers spun down with them like heavy rain pear blossoms. This was Duan Yun's inspiration from Prince Yuxiao's technique, Heavenly Annihilation. At that time, Prince Yuxiao flew in the air. Raising his robe, countless hidden weapons flew out from him, suppressing down below. Now, he was doing something similar except calling hidden weapons sword chi. As Duan Yun spun, remaining Axe Gang members trying hard to hold on fell one by one. They were riddled with holes from the shot sword chi. Even if alive, they could barely stand. Meanwhile, the bearded man was running, being carried by two gang members. These two were his confidants and protectors during the formation. As soon as he ordered the axes to kill civilians, he seized the chance to flee. This chaos was one of his rare escape opportunities. But the next moment, the bearded man suddenly stopped. A pair of hands appeared on his shoulders. A pair of very attractive hands, fingers slender, at a glance seemed swift, pressed down on his shoulders like nails. The nearby protector hadn't noticed anything peculiar, urgently said, "Boss, this way, shortcut." Next moment, that protector stopped as well, because he saw that exquisite face. At this moment, the bearded man couldn't help but shout, "What are you shouting? It's dark already. Do the neighbors not need sleep? If you disturb them or some peerless master, can you take responsibility?" Ha! After saying this, his knees suddenly went soft, kneeling on the ground, crying, "Spare me, hero." Duan Yun, patting his head, asked, "Are you the manager of the Axe Gang?" The bearded man quickly shook his head. "There's still the gang leader in the gang. Behind the gang leader is the evil god." "Evil god?" Duan Yun was instantly interested, said, "Come, take me to them." The bearded man with a sobbing voice asked, May I survive?" Duan Yun replied earnestly, "That will depend on whether your gang leader and that evil god can kill me." "Ha!" Duan Yun chuckled, said, "Justice and evil have been irreconcilable since ancient times. Today, this young hero wishes only to kill you or be killed by you." He thought he smiled boldly, but in the bearded man's eyes it was sinister. Where did this terrifying demon come from, to say such words of killing and fighting? Indeed, him saying such words only meant reconciliation was useless. However, seeing this demon being so domineering and arrogant, the bearded man instead saw a glimmer of hope. Yes, this guy being so confident will definitely challenge the gang leader and evil god. As long as evil god is present, who dares to act recklessly? When evil god arrives, he might just survive. Axe Gang Bright Casino. Most casinos are set in dark places, some even in underground where daylight never reaches. After all, casino business often includes opium and flesh trade, so the darker the environment, the better the business. But the Bright Casino is different. It demands brightness, because be it strong opium or flesh trade, here they all see the light. Inside the casino, whether it's the dice shaker or the card dealer, they're all scantily clad beauties. When the sun is scorching, they even go without clothes, so when you come here, even just watching is a pleasure. Bright Casino not only has a good environment and beautiful dealers, but also offers variety. For example, inside Bright Casino, you can drink the freshest milk within 100 miles radius. Precious dairy cows bought from Tianzhou are milked live next door, and as long as you buy a certain amount of chips, you can receive the equivalent amount of bright milk. Inside Bright Casino, you can tell if someone is a big spender by the size of the cup in their hand. The larger the cup, the more milk they drink, generally indicating a bigger spender. At Bright Casino, gamblers take pride in drinking bright milk, and for martial world people within 100 miles, being able to gamble lavishly here is an honor. There's no other way. This casino is so bright and safe because it's owned by the Axe Gang. Lingshui City isn't too big nor too small, yet the surrounding martial forces are formidable. Neither the further away Dusk Temple, famed for demon monks, nor the closer Frost Blood Pavilion with its fairies, are easy to provoke. The Axe Gang may just be a gang, but it manages to coexist peacefully without interfering with these sex affairs, a feat any slightly clever person knows must have underlying strengths. At this moment, the Axe Gang leader Chai Kuan is wearing a pink floral shirt, holding freshly milked bright milk in a night-light cup in his left hand, and elegantly teasing his hair parted at his forehead with his right hand. As the gang leader of Axe Gang, Chai Kuan has always been like this, possessing the skill of being graceful despite having a heavy mountain pressing on his top, because he has confidence. Crash. The beaded curtain at the door shook, and someone rushed in. "Gang leader, bad news!" the intruder shouted in panic. Chai Kuan sipped the milk with a calm face and said, "If the sky falls, I'll hold it up. Earlier, Fourth Lord got killed, and Blood Axe Wang Luo took 100 men over, but now they're gone. Hearing this, Chai Kuan paused. Then his expression turned serious. Grandmaster-level expert? Over 100 axemen, personally led by Blood Axe Wang Luo, were killed. Such a tough opponent. The Axe Gang hasn't encountered such in a long time. Even he must handle this carefully. And then, Chai Kuan asked. Then the spy reported that person followed Blood Axe Wang Luo towards the casino. But no rush, his pace isn't too fast. Perhaps influenced by the gang leader, the subordinate started speaking calmly at this moment as well. Only to hear a crisp slap, and Chai Kuan's hand was already on his face. "Why aren't you hurrying to invite the evil god?" Gang leader Chai Kuan scolded. Honestly speaking, he's not too intimidated by a grandmaster-level expert, yet similarly, he wants to be stable, not giving any chance for mishaps. Given the opponent's fierce approach, leave it to the evil god. The evil god specializes in dealing with various defiance. Not long after the subordinate crawled out, a voice was heard outside the curtain. "Your milk smells fishy." If Chai Kuan heard this sentence under usual circumstances, he would catch the person and teach him a lesson, explaining what fishy means. Daring to call their bright milk fishy, his taste buds must be flawed. But at this moment, thinking about the previous matter, Chai Kuan held back. Then, the curtain shook, and the first thing to come into view was Wang Luo's bushy-bearded big face, followed closely by an unexpectedly handsome man's face. Upon seeing him, Wang Luo said, "Gang leader, this hero has a matter to discuss with you." No need to guess, it's clear who the visitor is. Chai Kuan believed he was not weaker than the visitor and, being on his own turf, resolutely forced a respectful smile and humbly said, "Hero, what advice do you have?" Seeing his gang leader behave so humbly was a first even for bushy-bearded Wang Luo. Duan Yun put down the milk in his hand, glanced at the smoke-filled casino below, seeing not only gambling but also opium smoking, some even indulging in women and smoking while gambling, clearly a gathering place of prostitution, gambling, and drugs, and asked, "Are you in charge of the Axe Gang?" Next moment, a thud was heard, and Wang Luo was shocked again. Witnessed by everyone, springily composed, graceful under pressure gang leader suddenly kneeled. "Hey, gang leader, but there are still many brothers here. If you're going to kneel, at least choose a place with fewer people. Hero, if some foolish member of the Axe Gang has offended you, I beg your forgiveness. Pray do not implicate me, the gang leader. I've done nothing except run this casino." Chai Kuan kneeled on the ground, face full of humility. Don't be fooled by his surface humility. He's really quite impressed with himself. He believed his strength was not weaker than the opponent's, yet managed to perform so humbly. Such endurance is not something everyone possesses. Yes, endurance. Even possessing strong power, endurance is needed to achieve the final victory. This is valuable life experience he gained from previously being a live-in son-in-law. Previously, his identity was noble and secret, getting slapped dozens of times a day by his woman, slapped in turns by some grandfather and grandmother in his family, and he endured it all. Now he can endure even more. Back in the day, he was slapped more than 10,000 times, but he discovered that the more he endured, the stronger he became. Until the king's return, he avenged everyone at home who slapped him, regardless of age or gender, elevating both his mindset and strength to a new level. This is the power of endurance. Though he hadn't endured this way in a long time, he was familiar with it. Moreover, this time it wouldn't take that long at all. As soon as the evil god arrives, he would be absolutely safe. Absolute safety means absolute retaliation, and absolute retaliation means absolute victory. Chai Kuen's achievements today are all thanks to endurance. The opponent knelt down so quickly, in front of so many hands, even Duan Yun was taken aback. He had witnessed the blood axe formation of the axe gang, and logically speaking, the gang leader should be imposing, but even though he knelt quickly, young hero has always been fair. Everything must be accounted for, and with such a gang established by this guy, it's impossible for him to be removed from the list. Quickly serve the tea. The best tea. Let the madam come out to receive the guest. We have distinguished guests. To endure, Chai Kuen was even willing to offer his beloved madam. Just as the fine tea was served, a trumpet sound suddenly echoed in the bright casino. The trumpet sound was like a small knife slicing through the air, very exhilarating. Even Duan Yun felt a rush of blood. Welcome, evil god. Welcome, evil god. A chorus of welcoming voices rang out, and whether they were disciples of the Axe Gang or gambling enthusiasts at the height of excitement, all knelt uniformly. Duan Yun observed this and thought that even an emperor's arrival might not prompt such a synchronized gesture. And as these people knelt, the gang leader Chai Kuen, who was previously kneeling, stood up and gradually puffed up his chest with pride. Bang, bang, bang. Chai Kuen dashed down with lightning speed and appeared before a man and a woman. The man wore a black hat, his beard neatly trimmed above and below, making his face look like it had 6 eyebrows at first glance. The woman wore green clothes, also donning a black felt hat draped with black gauze, paired with her curvy figure, giving her a bit of a widow's aura from films. Upon seeing the two, Chai Kuen's eyes welled up as he said, "It was this person who killed our people, forced someone to kneel, and even demanded me to tie up my hair for him. Evil god, you must uphold justice for me." Hearing this, Duan Yun's hair stood on end. "You son of a b***********, slandering, aren't you?" He looked again at the Axe Gang's gang leader. The groveling demeanor from before was gone, replaced by a sense of smugness. This scene reminded Duan Yun of those spoiled kids from his past life, who would momentarily play the victim and become insolent as soon as their parents appeared. Such people are truly repulsive on a physical level. But by now, Duan Yun's attention was already focused on the 6-eyebrowed man and the widow in black. From the moment they appeared with the trumpet sound, he sensed they were undoubtedly masters. And this couple was also scrutinizing him. In the stirring trumpet sound, as both parties approached each other, the surrounding gamblers and Axe Gang disciples hastily made way for the 3 of them. In front, there happened to be a sandalwood gambling table. "Please." The man gestured for Duan Yun to take a seat. Duan Yun sat down and asked, "Who is the evil god?" At this time, the widow spoke first, shrugging, "Fire spirit." The 6-eyebrowed man followed with a shrug, "Evil god." The evil god behind the Axe Gang was actually 2 people. As soon as the words fell, the duo emanated a palpable evil aura, causing those standing nearby to shed tears, unable to withstand it. This kind of evil aura only agile masters could generate was, in a way, a sign of goodwill. Between grandmasters, life and death clashes aren't taken lightly. Displaying one's aura or killing intent is an identity signal among masters. Thus, it maximizes the avoidance of unnecessary clashes, moving on with otherworldly concerns. Subordinates may die, but masters aren't so easily risked. Duan Yun, still a semi-newcomer to the martial world, was used to fighting and didn't understand these customs. But as the duo declared their identity, he directly responded, "Duan Yun." Hearing the name, the previously relaxed fire spirit evil god turned solemn, and the widow in a delicate voice asked, "Young hero Duan?" "It's me," Duan Yun replied. The 6-eyebrowed evil god couldn't help but smile, saying, Turns out it's the famous young hero Duan of the martial world. My wife and I have long admired your feats and always held you in high regard. Lishui City, not far from here, has a reputation as land of young heroes. So my wife and I have refrained from meddling there. But why cause chaos in Lingshui City? Young hero Duan. Duan Yun lamented, "Your place is unacceptable, especially the Axe Gang. It's an absolute disgrace. I really couldn't stand it." Upon hearing this, the expression on the six-eyebrowed evil god darkened, as gloomy as his black hat. "I showed you respect by calling you young hero. Don't dig your own grave." At this, the widow added, "Over the past 2 years, you've killed many people, including grandmasters, but we too have killed many of such stature." The woman's words were no bluff, for they are the ultimate assassins of Netherworld Mountain Villa. As the most dreaded assassin organization, only less than 10 have ever been titled as ultimate assassins in hundreds of years. In Netherworld Mountain Villa, their status might not be lower than the Manor Masters. They have killed grandmasters from sects before. Fire Spirit Evil God, as the ultimate assassin, represented the ultimate form of an assassin. Their detachment from the mountain villa attests to that. The couple had retired from the villa in their earlier years, choosing Lingshui City for retirement, and the Axe Gang emerged during that time. This is the reason the Axe Gang could rise so rapidly amid the chaotic forces of Lingshui City. Even the evil monk of the Dusk Temple and the fairy of Frost Blood Pavilion had to show them some respect. Yet, it is rare to see a young hero being so unyielding after being given a way out. Duan Yun looked at them and said, "Since you're adept at killing, both of you, come and kill me then." The evil god raised an eyebrow, his 4 mustaches arching as well, and said, "Are you sure?" Duan Yun nodded, "Very sure." At this moment, Fire Spirit and Evil God began to laugh together. "Wife, since ancient times, evil and madness can't coexist. Let's send this madman on his way. Husband, all according to you, though his body does look appealing, once he's dead, I'll take it while it's still warm." The evil god's face turned slightly green. "Let's see how much effort you put in then." He then turned to Duan Yun, saying, "Come then." Duan Yun shrugged, "Bring it on." Before the words fell, there was a booming explosion. Fire Spirit and Evil God moved simultaneously, kicking toward Duan Yun's crotch. The kicks were genuinely quick and ruthless, splitting the sturdy gambling table in half with a crack. While Duan Yun swiftly moved, clamping their legs midway using the heart-to-heart clasp. Everyone saw the 3 of them frozen in place like a tableau. In their eyes, the trio seemed to be in a standstill. Then, the barefooted widow Fire Spirit twirled, and something resembling a black whip shot from her waist and plunged toward her rear. Scorpion Tail Sweep. This sweep was truly striking, surprisingly swift, surprisingly brutal, targeting Duan Yun's underarm. This time, there was no time for Duan Yun to perform the heart-to-heart clasp again. The widow's thrust is insidious, as if this chain sword-like thing inserted into her backside axe with incredible dexterity. At this moment, the widow truly has the aura of a scorpion demoness reborn, both ruthless and poisonous. This caught Duan Yun off guard, and the angle was extremely tricky, leaving him no time to deploy the heart-to-heart clasp defense, so he chose to withstand it directly. Almost simultaneously, netherworld-breaking body sword chi drilled out of his body, forming sword mist. Behind the sword mist, wind-flowing force emerged as well. In the blink of an eye, Duan Yun harnessed 2 layers of power for defense, pushing the defensive abilities of breaking body sword chi and his surrounding power to the extreme. Unfortunately, time was too rushed, and the woman's tail needle strike was well prepared. Therefore, with a hiss sound, although the tail needle was stalled twice by his power, it still pierced through Duan Yun's underarm clothing and punctured his flesh. The needle was going to burrow deeper into his flesh when a pop sound was heard, and more concentrated breaking body sword chi overflowed, flinging it away. Duan Yun's face showed a hint of anger. Skin was broken. To have broken skin within these 3 moves was rare in his career as a young hero so far. Must admit, the most venomous is a woman's heart, and the thing inserted in her backside is truly wicked. Though Fire Spirit succeeded with one strike, her expression changed suddenly. As her legs tightened and she let out a slight groan, urine burst through her black skirt, splashing all over her husband, the evil god. The evil god was shocked, thinking he had been hit by a hidden weapon, and spun around wildly. This change resulted from Duan Yun's wind-flowing force reverberating through Fire Spirit's venomous sting, causing her to urinate uncontrollably. Faced with such a scenario, neither side was advantaged. Duan Yun broke skin unusually, while the ultimate assassin Fire Spirit had an unprecedented public urination mishap. This surprise was shared by both sides. Yet, the emotional shift was greater for Duan Yun. Making someone urinate publicly was normal for him, but breaking skin was not. Does young hero Duan not care about losing face? Filled with rage, Duan Yun's body flickered as he charged the widow, unleashing violent and fearsome fist technique. 16 strange fist. Slam! His arms turned into shadows, bombarding towards the widow Fire Spirit like cannonballs. Seeing this, Fire Spirit's backside trembled, vibrating like a motor into a blur. Simultaneously, the chain sword inserted in her backside, or rather her tail needle, frantically stabbed towards Duan Yun. The cannon-like fist and the insidious tail needle collided, emitting a terrifying sound, causing shockwaves. A nearby spectator who was a croupier screamed as the wave of energy lifted her skirt, prompting her to quickly cover it. Surrounding onlookers reacted with disdain. It's just for sale, why the needless act, interrupting us from the spectacle? Yes, a woman's skirt blown up revealing no underwear may be appealing, but it couldn't compare to the thrill of watching high-level fighters brawl. At this time, Duan Yun's and the woman's entanglement was changing even more brazenly. Amid his fist power, mixed wind-flowing force vibrated along the tail needle. With the tail needle inserted in her backside, this vibration from wind-flowing force was even more direct. In the eyes of the crowd, this ultimate assassin Fire Spirit fought while urinating, emitting groans everywhere. A patron doubled as a gambler lowered for a better look, but moments later was hit in the right eye by an urine stream, collapsing with a wretched howl. Pain, pain, pain. Not just pain but scorching and itching. On this side, facing Duan Yun's fierce and bizarre fist techniques, despite Fire Spirit's profound power and tail needle's odd confrontation and retaliation, she found it hard to endure. She worried if she continued urinating, she'd be dehydrated. Thus she shouted, "Husband, assist me!" Upon hearing his wife's call, the evil god leapt, wielding 2 dragon roaming needles. Release her! The dragon roaming needles moved like a flood dragon through the sea, stabbing towards Duan Yun. Duan Yun ignored him, relentlessly attacking his wife. Sensing the powerful wind from behind, Duan Yun stiffened his body, delivering a powerful elbow hit that sent Fire Spirit to her knee, then roared, "Ching! Come out!" The boxer Dharma image appeared in an instant. Its robes and Duan Yun's joined in reverberating wave-like force. Add another and it's still a slam. Now Duan Yun pushed fist technique to the extreme, adding another man's groans under Fire Spirit's moans. In the exchange with Duan Yun, the evil god was also shaken by wind-flowing force. With a loud bang, the nearby gambling table was struck and instantly shattered into pieces. The fragments flew swiftly and fiercely, within a moment smashing over 10 gamblers, 3 of whom crashed through the window, one even plunging his head into Bright Cow's rear end, struggling wildly before pulling free. For a time, Duan Yun and the couple wrestled together, fists and feet turned into blurs. While the moans of Fire Spirit and evil god intertwined, their urine spraying wildly, tearing through their trousers. As ultimate assassins, Fire Spirit and evil god had roamed the martial world for many years, killing countless, never encountering such a situation. This feeling was beyond bizarre. It was extraordinarily taxing. This old demon not only had terrifying fist techniques but the aftermath tormented them mentally. When had they ever urinated like this in a fight? Yet both persisted because they knew, the fiercer the old demon's attacks now, the more miserable he'd be later. The tail needle only pierced the skin, but the poison inside was enough to seep through. As this force circulates, they will win. At this moment, Fire Spirit's hind trembled into a blur, urine turning into mist, and the tail needle swayed along, like a stream of light. Even the air was sliced in half, forming a grayish-white turbulent flow. Faced with this strike, Duan-Yun had to switch from offense to defense, his right hand's 2 fingers striking out like lightning. With a snap, as soon as the 2 fingers clamped the tail needle, it still swayed. Thunder fire! Loud clattering. A crisp sound rang out. A black-red bead was flicked by the evil god, flying over along the tail needle. At this moment, Fire Spirit let out a soft hum, moving its butt again. With a click, it was the sound of something like a mechanism being activated. A segment of the tail needle suddenly protruded, colliding with the bead. Boom! A terrifying flame instantly exploded in front of Duan-Yun. Fire! 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 As the voice of Fire Spirit continued, more similar beads rolled along its tail needle. At this moment, Fire Spirit's once pitiful face like a widow's suddenly turned mad. Ha ha ha! I just love swiveling my hips. I just love setting fires. Don't let me stop. Fire! 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 The tail needle kept firing around Duan-Yun. Terrifying explosions echoed repeatedly, and the soaring flames directly engulfed Duan-Yun. And at this moment, several old men's Swona sounds suddenly rose sharply, the sound piercing straight into the sky. Following it, a rhythmic shout from one of the old men echoed, "Fire Spirit, evil god! 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 God!" The bright gambling house had been blown to pieces, holes everywhere, and the onlookers couldn't dodge in time, instantly catching fire. Not to mention the gamblers, even the few cows nearby were blown to the sky, cooked when they fell back down. Smoke and dust filled the air, and the couple, Fire Spirit and Evil God, smoked from the top of their heads, panting heavily. Their bout of fire just now consumed too much of their strength and true chi. And even though the tail needle kept them at a distance, coupled with the dedicated evil fire technique, especially Fire Spirit, because of continuous incontinence and frantic but shaking, was getting a bit weak. But it was worth it. Under such a terrifying fire attack, old Demon Duan was probably cooked. The ultimate assassin Fire Spirit Evil God was renowned for fire, never failing. This evil fire was their ultimate move. Have to admit, old Demon Duan pushing them to this extent was indeed the fiercest opponent they had ever met. Thankfully, they were one step ahead. Rustle. A heavy rain started pouring from the gloomy sky. The gambling house's roof had long been blown off by the previous explosion. The rain falling and a smell of charring and urine pervaded. The rain continued, like beads large and small falling on a jade plate, quickly clearing the smoke and dust around. And at this time, the couple Fire Spirit Evil God suddenly got startled. Due to the collapsed wall, there was vaguely a black shadow. The shadow was blacker than black, faintly shining, resembling a human figure. A human figure? It even seemed to be a graceful woman. Old Demon Duan was gone. So where did the woman come from? Could old Demon Duan have been blown into a beauty? Deceptive appearance wasn't their forte. In the next moment, the shadow moved and looked up. Immediately thunder and lightning flashed across her beautiful eyes. Dharma image. Netherworld Jade Sword Immortal Little Yu looked up at that moment, and Duan-Yun stood up as well. Just having faced this terrifying explosion, even Duan-Yun felt threatened. At the moment his underwear was blown away, he was already wrapped in breaking body sword energy, unleashing the Jade Sword Immortal Dharma. Duan-Yun had described it before. Starting Little Yu felt like operating a mecha. Similarly, as long as thunder flowed, plus the rotation of spring rain blade intent, Little Yu could wrap him like a mecha, forming enough defense. Outside the Thundersworn Netherworld Jade Sword Immortal, inside the Breaking Body Sword Energy Protection, further deeper with protective true chi. If that wasn't enough, the heroic Fire Lotus could be condensed into chi force. All in all, at least 3 layers of protection offered peace of mind. Hence in this explosion, Duan-Yun couldn't say entirely unharmed. After all, at the start his clothes got blown away, hair singed, and arms still stung with a burning sensation. But he survived. It wasn't easy. The hair on my arm is all gone. Skin flushed. So Duan-Yun was flushed. He looked at the astonished fire spirit evil god couple and said, "Playing with fire, are we?" Heroic fire torments. With a body full of rage, fire lines crossed before him, forming blossoming fire lotus. The next moment, his whole person already turned into a lingering shadow. Wherever his body and swirling heroic fire lotus passed, rain turned into white mist, resembling the fog of overseas immortal mountain at a glance. And by this time, the fiery shadow had reached the side of fire spirit evil god, lifting an elbow strike. Along with the elbow strike, there emerged a rotating heroic fire lotus. With a boom, the elbow strike with heroic fire lotus carried an extremely raging power. The fire spirit evil god couple coordinated seamlessly, simultaneously resisting, using their arms to block, only to hear a bang, like thunder rolling. The couple was sent flying by this elbow strike, crashing through two walls without stopping. The key was the pervasive fire on them, quickly burning their clothes into a battle-worn state, particularly the wife fire spirit, nearly naked. The evil god, seeing this, felt a pang of acidity. That bastard did it on purpose. The two were called fire spirit evil god. Naturally proficient in fire skills, they would eat fire coals when idle, satisfying to the mouth and training. This is definitely not a fake trick from the martial world, but a true display of the fire skill practice to an extremely high level. But Duan-Yun's fire-powered elbow strike was so overpowering and fierce that even their bodies, which were relatively resistant to fire, couldn't withstand it and suffered internal injuries. The rain was heavy, the surroundings were dangerous, but it couldn't stop the enthusiasm of the spectators. Many here were gamblers with a strong gambling instinct. They gambled as if their lives depended on it, so at this moment, they seemed nearly fearless. Someone even secretly started a game, betting on the outcome of a few moves. From initially betting that the evil god would win within 10 moves to 100 moves, to betting on the victory and defeat, from when evil fire skill was unleashed the outcome seemed decided, and now the fire spirit evil god being struck and sent flying, can be said that the plot took unexpected turns and reached its climax. Duan-Yun repeatedly hit people's faces, causing most gamblers who bet on the evil god being invincible to lose miserably. Currently, there was only one person who won the most. Little Een. Little Een bet everything on Duan-Yun's victory. All in. Because being his mount, she knew well the terror of old demon Duan. Just now, when Duan-Yun was blown away without a trace, she even felt hesitant about Duan-Yun either losing or getting injured, and this hesitation had turned into shame. What a loss of mind, believing anything instead of old demon Duan. Once Duan-Yun executed that elbow strike, one could see who had the upper hand. Under the gaze of everyone, the supposedly invincible fire spirit evil god couple, burning all over, flew out. And when they landed on their bottoms. But their momentum didn't stop, so the couple slid on the ground with their bottoms. Due to the speed, you could even see sparks flying. Wow! Wow! The couple lay on the ground, spitting out a mouthful of blood. At this moment, Duan-Yun struck again. Cloud-clearing palm. Duan-Yun's cloud-clearing palm could be said to be self-created, but was also influenced by previous life film and television works. It had the effect of being stronger when encountering water. Both of his palms came out, and rainwater instantly formed into two flood dragon shapes in his palms, crashing towards the couple. Seeing this, the fire spirit evil god hurriedly slapped the ground with his hands, trying to leap up and dodge. But at this moment, the force twisted like a flood dragon moving its head. They were hit squarely. The violent palm power mixed with rainwater blasted onto the couple. The two were slammed against the wall. In just a few breaths, the evil god felt his whole body was filled with palm power and water flow, almost overflowing. Even though he was a big man, he couldn't help but let out a painful groan. And what about his lovely wife? How could she withstand this? Fire spirit indeed couldn't bear it, She was already weaker than her husband in body refinement, and now her mouth opened, water gushing out, eyes rolling back. Seeing the wounded and humiliated appearance of his wife, the evil god felt unprecedented humiliation, which triggered a terrifying potential within him. Thunderbolt hand. He struck his two hands out, as if tearing apart a real flood dragon, tearing apart the palm power of cloud-clearing palm, attacking Duan Yun. Let go of her. With disheveled hair, 6 eyebrows all askew, the evil god shouted madly. His thunderbolt hand really had some skill, with the momentum seeming to split mountains and valleys. In the next moment, only the sound of screeching could be heard. The evil god was suddenly kicked down to the ground by Duan Yun, who pressed his head and rubbed it crazily on the ground. His thunderbolt hand was indeed fierce, but he forgot his hands weren't as long as the opponent's legs. Grinding noise, like the sound of a road roller crushing over the ground. The evil god's face was crushed, and the ground made of bluestone slabs instantly crumbled like mud. Such a heavy blow to the husband gave the wife a chance to catch her breath. The power of cloud-clearing palm was running out. Fire Spirit struggled to leap up. Her body just leapt 3 feet high and suddenly stopped moving. A hint of bitterness appeared on Fire Spirit's face. This was because Duan Yun's hand had already gripped her neck, her fair, delicate neck, under pressure. Then the grinding sound of the road roller quickly became a noise of 2 routes. While her face was pressing against the stone slab, Fire Spirit used great force, twisting her hips. She swung the tail needle on her butt towards Duan Yun's back. However, Duan Yun seemed to have anticipated this point. With a wave of his hand, the evil god's body was positioned behind him. Thus that tail needle pierced deeply into the evil god's belly. When Fire Spirit realized this, it was already too late. She hadn't expected that her bottom would have such a powerful effect. Old Demon Duan surely had been keeping an eye on her round behind, thus guarding against this move. In the moment of surprise, Duan Yun flung the 2 away, raised his hand for 2 elbow strikes, hitting the couple's guts. Oh! Oh! The Fire Spirit evil god landed, unable to get up again. The Fire Spirit evil god was defeated. At that moment, the evil god's eyes almost popped out, but he still uttered his final shout. Old Demon gravely injured. Kuin, hurry! Sadly for the evil god, no one answered him in the rain. If his guess was correct, Kuin had probably hidden and run away again. No chance left. At this point, the evil god's body shook because he heard his wife's woo-woo sound. This sound was both familiar and strange. Struggling to raise his head, he saw old Demon Duan searching his wife's body. Is this the price of defeat? Madam! For a moment, the evil god stared fixedly, face ashen, heart aching like a knife. At this moment, he heard Duan Yun's annoyed voice. Why does a master not have any jewelry at all? Breaking so many things, don't you need to compensate? At this moment, Fire Spirit let out an ear-piercing scream because Duan Yun pulled out her tail needle. This add-on should be worth some money, Duan Yun remarked while looking at the item. At the height of the intense battle, the Fire Cloud evil god Swona band was playing vigorously, and the gambling spectators were even more ecstatic. But now, everything became quiet. The undefeated Fire Spirit evil god lost. Lost so thoroughly, truly surprising everyone. Except for one person, Little Een. At this moment, Little Een raised her hand to report, Master, someone is refusing to pay. Previously, the few gamblers who lost and vomited blood looked at Little Een being a woman and tried to refuse to pay. But with Little Yin's cry of Master, they lost all composure. This is your master? If you had told us earlier, Bodhisattva Lady. Lingshui City had, for a long time, been called Kuin City, because the largest gang here, the Axe Gang, had a leader with the word Kuin in his name. Unfortunately, at this time, during this torrential rainy night, everything was about to change. While the young hero's victory was indeed thrilling, the defeat of the evil god couple was even more heart-wrenching. This wasn't just because many gamblers went bankrupt, wanting to renege on their debts but were too afraid. but also because the skies of Lingshui City began to change. All in all, on the surface, Lingshui City had always been divided three ways among the Axe Gang, Dusk Temple, and Frost Blood Pavilion. The people in the city always worked hard to earn money, eating the high-priced watermelons from Frost Blood Pavilion, longing to catch the same illness as a fairy to gain an opportunity to be close, and were always charged high protection fees by the Axe Gang while living within the Axe Gang's gambling, drugs, and brothels industries. They took pride in drinking a glass of bright milk and also lived in constant wait, fearing when their wives or daughters would be taken away by monks from the Dusk Temple to lick feet, never returning for the night. These days, although chaotic and a bit difficult, they had gotten used to them. Getting used to it was considered a blessing. Now that such blessed days were changing, they could barely accept it, even wanting to burst out in curses. It's all because of this suddenly emerging scoundrel, young hero Duan, who ruined everything. Without the Axe Gang, where would they find a place like Bright Casino where you could gamble, drink milk, and everything else? Without the Axe Gang, who would collect their protection fees? Carrying silver on them felt quite unreasonable. But alas, the outcome was already decided. The fire spirit evil god was kneeling before this demonic young hero. Even the fire spirit's tail needle had been pulled out by the young hero, completely defeated. Even the defeated fire spirit evil god themselves found it difficult to accept their defeat. Their defeat was too fast and too easy. Besides the little trouble caused by their proud evil fire, they never managed an effective counterattack. They still had some secret skills, but they didn't even have the chance to use them before being defeated. As the ultimate assassin, the fire spirit evil god held a very high status within Ghost Manor. In terms of taking lives, they were perhaps the most top tier beneath the manor master in White Jade City, even surpassing the masters of various branch manors. Killing has to be professional. Yet, in front of this person, their professionalism failed. This old demon Duan was indeed extremely uncanny and was not the bluff that recent storytellers described, easily left in critical condition. Yes, old demon Duan can be said to be a rare existence in history who pressured the bloodthirsty storyteller to change approach. Previously, when Duan Yun burst onto the scene, the bloodthirsty storyteller merely added embellishments to objective facts, depicting the uncanny nature of old demon Duan. As old demon Duan grew more ferocious and even created a great hero storyteller to oppose them, they began to defame him regardless of the truth, trying to incite martial world to anger, leading to old demon Duan's death at the hands of a master. But later, old demon Duan's achievements were truly frightening, and even the combined forces of heroes failed. Thus, the defamation wasn't effective enough, so they shifted strategy again. They spread the rumor that old demon Duan's actual combat power was not strong, easily left in critical condition when encountering a formidable enemy, and also spread that he carried precious treasures. In the martial world, where people are always busy risking their lives for profit, learning that old demon Duan had valuables tempted some. This led to the outrageous incident of offering wives to old demon Duan for martial arts training. With the storyteller's embellishments, the stereotype of old demon Duan being easily left in critical condition became ingrained in the minds of martial world people, effectively reducing his perceived combat strength. Even if his strength was diminished by rumors, ordinary experts in the martial world dared not provoke old demon Duan, even if he reportedly carried treasures. But experts like the fire spirit evil god are different. Experts of this level are always proud. Only those with enough pride and confidence can master divine skill. Such people, even if Duan Yun's strength had not been diminished, wouldn't be too convinced. This time, it was Duan Yun who picked a fight, and they felt they showed enough respect and gave him a way out, but when he didn't back down, that is why they decided to strike ruthlessly. And the result? Your so-called easily left in critical condition, my foot. This pair of unfortunate lovebirds, might just be no more. Duan Yun looked at the seriously injured pair, his hand itching, couldn't help but scratch the back of it, contemplating the extermination. But at this moment, the evil god suddenly used all his strength to wail. "Young hero, you should kill me. My wife is so beautiful, with a great chest and a nice rear. If not killed, she can still be useful. Please, I beg you not to kill her." Duan Yun did not expect this guy still had true love. Fire Spirit looked at her husband with a face full of grief, slowly forming a resolute expression. She looked at Duan Yun and spoke, "Yes, I can still be useful. Don't kill me." This caused the waist of those around to almost snap from the shock. "Madam, could you not say something to survive with that kind of resolute face as if you're facing death?" Duan Yun said, "This time I don't plan to kill you both." Fire Spirit and Evil God's eyes suddenly lit up. Evil God shouted, "Hero, through hell and high water." "Hero?" Fire Spirit echoed. "Yes, through hell and high water. I can still be useful." Duan Yun looked at them, shaking his head and said, "Saying things that way is hard for people to believe." Ah! Fire Spirit Evil God was taken aback. Duan Yun was telling the truth. In the martial world, too many people were untrustworthy, let alone people like the Fire Spirit Evil God. Duan Yun said, "I have decided to give you a heroic spirit makeover." "What makeover?" Evil God asked, surprised. Duan Yun looked at the couple and said, "You should have a cellar here, right?"